to the Springdale Town Council regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, and it is 5:01. We are in Springdale at the Kenyon Community Center. With us from the town, we have Tom Dancy, Rick Wixom, Aaron Emerson, and Robin Romero. Also at that table, we have our General Counsel, Greg Hardman. On the dais from council, we have Jack Burns, Randy Aton, me, Barbara Bruno, Pat Campbell, and Kyla Topham. And we will, let's see, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda.
I move that we approve the regular meeting agenda.
I'll second.
We got a motion by Kyla, second by Pat.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Randy, yeah.
Jack, aye.
Okay. We will start with general announcements. Are there any general announcements by staff?
Yeah, we got quite a few things coming up in the next couple days. As part of the September 11th National Day of Service, tomorrow morning we will be holding a cemetery service project. Those who wish to participate can come to the Jolly Gifford Cemetery at 8 a.m. to help clean up around cemetery headstones. This is an event that we've been holding for the past several years as a way to honor and pay tribute to those who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. On Friday, September 12th, the CCC will be hosting a blood drive put on by the American Red Cross. The blood drive will run from noon to 5 p.m., and while walk-ins are welcome, people are encouraged to sign up on redcrossblood.org. And then lastly, as part of the 2025 Southwest Astronomy Festival, the CCC will be hosting renowned NASA astrophysicist Dr. Jesse Christiansen as a guest speaker who will be giving a lecture on exoplanets. The lecture will take place on Sunday, September 14th at 8 p.m. right here in this building, in this room. Following the lecture, there will be a star party and stargazing through telescopes.
Thank you, Ryan.
Questions?
Did I see that there's also something on the field Friday night?
That has been canceled.
Oh, that's been canceled.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for saying.
Yep. Thanks.
I won't show up.
I see Garen coming up.
So yeah, real quick, we have the Springdale Preparedness Fair that is September 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a Thursday. There are food trucks and a lot of people, a lot of emergency stuff to come and see and talk to, and there'll be food vouchers as well, so come and have a good time on the ball field.
Thank you. The grassy knoll. Any other general announcements? Okay. Superintendent Brady Bott, do you want to give us an update on Zion National Park?
Howdy. Good afternoon. Couple of quick notes. Shuttle schedule will be changing come Monday, September 15th. So things will generally start in the morning an hour later and wind up an hour earlier. All those times are posted on our website. Couple other notes. You probably noticed that the Weeping Rock Trail and shuttle stop is open. We've been able to complete a bunch of repairs there from the 2019 rock fall, and it's up and running, so we're glad to have that trail open again. For the month of September, we do have the Kayenta Trail closed for maintenance. Quite a bit of work to do on that trail. That connects from the grotto over toward Emerald Pools. But of course, the most direct route to Emerald Pools is Emerald Pools Trail. And let's see, visitation-wise, as you know, earlier in the year we were up quite a bit, and that percentage increase has been kind of dropping off through the later part of the summer, but for August, compared to August last year, we're still up 2.4% in terms of total visitors through August 31st. And how that compares to 2019, pre-pandemic. This year, through August 31st, we would be up 9.3%, so significant difference there. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Looks like there are none. Thank you.
Let me off easy tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is remembrance of retired Chief Kurt Wright, and Police Chief Breck is going to do that.
Thank you, Mayor. As many of you know, retired Police Chief Kurt Wright passed away at the end of August. Kurt was hired as a deputy with the Washington County Sheriff's Office in the 80s and served as a patrol and a canine deputy for many years. He's very proud of his canine officer, Echo, as many of you know. He always had a passion for Springdale and began his service to the town in April of 1992, where he was hired as the part-time town marshal. Kurt had a deep sense of duty and strong commitment to keeping the community safe. His dedication soon became invaluable, and in July of 2002, he was hired as a full-time police chief for Springdale. For over 2 decades, Chief Wright served the people of Springdale with kindness. He navigated the unique challenges of leading a small-town police department with a huge heart. Those who worked alongside of him remember his genuine care for the residents. Kurt retired from the town's police department in 2015. While he may no longer be with us, his impact lives on in the trust he built within the community. On behalf of the town of Springdale and the Springdale Police Department, we are deeply grateful for Kurt's many years of service and for the quiet, steadfast way he helped make Springdale a better place. Kurt will be missed by many, but his memory will always remain a part of Springdale. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Randy has a guest here who will present to us, but does anyone have any questions about the council reports before that? Randy, do you want to go ahead with your?
Chief Joe Decker's here. Our fire board meeting usually is the first Monday. I was not able to get a written report in, so I said I'd give a verbal, and here's my verbal report.
I got thrown under the bus for the night. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
right.
I'm sorry, I'm not in
volunteered.
uniform tonight, guys. We've been cleaning all day at the fire station, getting ready for a 9/11 event tomorrow. So we invite anybody to come down to the Hurricane if you want to. We have a big event going. We raise one of the largest flags in southern Utah. Got pancake breakfast, all types of neat stuff going on. So we welcome you guys to come if you'd like to. We'll just kind of get down to it. One of the big things Randy asked me to talk about was your ordinance for tonight for fireworks and fires. I'm going to completely agree with where you've done on your ordinance. I've read it already, went through it. I'm in complete agreement. The way the canyon is up here is just not a safe environment for any type of fireworks and for open burning or anything like that. So we, as the fire district and your fire authority, will support any decision you guys make. We will recommend to go with what you have on your ordinance, and anything we can do to help you with that, we would be grateful. We're happy to do for you guys. A couple other quick things. We discovered Monday night after our board meeting, we received a text message from the governor, and our sales tax initiative that we've been trying to get passed for the last 4 years was put on the special session agenda at the very last minute. So I'll be in Salt Lake most of next week working on that. So hopefully we'll get that taken care of for our funding for the fire district.
And just so that everybody knows, we had an increase in our property taxes this year, our line item for EMS and fire services, and we're hoping this will offset that.
Yeah.
We could eventually.
The resolution that was passed by our board specifically states in it that if we can get our sales tax passed, we will drop the property tax down to where it was before.
This year?
It probably won't happen this year because of the way that everything fell with the special session, but next year for sure.
Okay.
So you're gonna try to get it into next year's legislative session?
No, we're going in next week's legislative session. We're going in the special session next week. But the
Okay.
way that it
This
works,
is new.
yeah, we just found this out. The way that it works is once if it goes into law by the governor signs it, it's a 90-day period even after our board enacts it before it can be enacted to collect sales tax, and then it's a 2-month lag after that. So we're into the second quarter of next year before we would collect anything.
Okay.
So, okay.
Will you be here when we discuss the fireworks ordinance? It's at the end of the agenda, or you're planning on getting out of here?
I wasn't planning on it because I have to hit Rockville too, but
Okay.
if need be, I can change some things and stay if you'd like
I
me
may
to.
have some questions, but I think they can be answered later. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, and I bet you could ask him a
Yeah.
question now if you needed to.
Yeah,
'cause
you
I
can
did have a
ask
question.
any questions now.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, the questions I have are involved, and they kind of rely on how the code reads.
Sure.
It's kind of in the weeds, so I don't want to go there now.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the fall burn
Mhm.
period for Washington County,
Mhm.
to get a burn permit is September 15th to November 15th. Do you have any concerns with our ordinance being out of sync with that?
So even though the law states that you have to, that is an open burn period by the state, the local authority can always go stricter. And if the town decides that they do not want to have open burning, we will not issue a burn permit. That's just what comes down to it. The Laverne does a few things different. Instead of doing a full month, they do 2 weeks. Tokerville does a full, if they want to do 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks. We support every municipality they want to be, but if you pass an ordinance that say we don't want any open burning, we won't issue burn permits. Now, unfortunately, when people do burn, chief gets to deal with them in that situation, but you also now, by having the ordinance, has the teeth to be able to say, no, it is a infraction, Class C misdemeanor, whatever you guys pass that ordinance as, so.
Well, then generally, I will ask the question. Are you in favor of fireworks at all?
You're gonna put me in a bad place here.
Or you can wait for an hour and a
No,
half. to
I
let me-
will be
I'll
honest,
ask the same question, so.
I also serve on the State Fire Prevention Board. I'm one of 7 that serve on that board for the state, and this is a topic of discussion every year. I can tell you from my end, we do not enjoy them, but there is a lot of money that lobbies for them. There's my political answer for you. It is the busiest day of the year for us as a district. This year alone, we ran over 70 calls in 4 hours based off fireworks. Luckily enough, there was none up the 9 corridor because Virgin, Rockville, Springdale all banned fireworks.
There's your answer.
There's your answer for the day.
On your way out, would you sign an affidavit with the attorney?
You guys live in a very heavily dense wildland urban interface area. And even by state code, you read the code and it talks about 200 feet within ridge lines, waterways, open fields. There is nowhere in your community that you're not in that area. Even right dead center right on SR9. I can even think where our fire station is. People could say that would be a good place. Well, no, I have a wash that runs right through my property. I can't meet it just by that. So in essence, what state code says of where you can't do fireworks, 100% of your town is in that area. So,
Thank you.
is that a good enough answer for you?
That
Would
will
you
help,
talk a little bit,
that will help here in about an hour and a half, yes.
Okay.
would you talk a little bit about HB 48 and wildland urban interface?
Absolutely. This is a fun one. House Bill 48 was passed this year by the state legislature, and it was designed to help with the issues of people becoming uninsurable or having very high insurance rates being dropped by their carriers because they're in the wildland urban interface area. So what has happened with this is one of the requirements that the legislature has put on every municipality of your local jurisdiction is they have to pass the WUI code, the 2006 WUI code, in each jurisdiction by the end of the year. The unfortunate part about this is they don't even have rules made up on this particular law that was passed. Once again, I sit on a steering committee for this with the State Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, and we are still trying to figure out what the repercussions of a municipality doesn't pass this ordinance is, what does it mean for that particular area, unincorporated areas of the county, municipalities, everything. So as these rules come into place, like I was telling Randy, you're gonna be seeing a lot of me coming to you going, okay, here's what we know what the state is asking for. we need to come into Springdale town, designate your WUI area, which is your well interface, the outer edges. We have to create a map, and then that is passed by the town that says, you're in this area, you have to do a certain amount of defensible space, you have to clean things up. And that is your portion of House Bill 48. The state has a whole nother portion that they're going to do that also involves them creating their own WUI maps of everywhere, and then them coming and inspecting areas in the WUI area, and seeing what the risk factor is for homes and structures in their maps. We don't know what the repercussions are going to be. We don't know what the good is going to be. We don't know what the bad is going to be coming out of this. I wish I could tell you that. Just a lot of unknown of what's happening with this particular law right now until rules are finished being drafted and we can start to work through the minutia of it. The one thing I can guarantee is, being as your authority having jurisdiction, we will do everything in our power to help you as a municipality and help keep rates, insurance rates low, and make sure everybody is insured. So I cannot say it enough. This is not the fire district that is causing this problem. It's not the town that's causing this problem, because I do believe it is going to cause some hiccups with some people that do live in the WUI area. But this is unfortunately what I call a unfunded mandate from the state.
Imagine that.
Kyla, did you have some questions too?
Jack's question, I mean, essentially was my question. I didn't want us to enact an ordinance that would turn around, like if this is the best time to burn, October through November, then I didn't want to make an uneducated decision.
The state does a period in the fall, period in the spring that opens for burning. Reason why a lot of that is open is for agricultural reasons. We are still dry. We're still in record-setting indices for fuel moistures. So even with the opening right now, I think we've only had, well, I know Washington City's been open since the 1st of September. I think we've only had one day that people could burn so far, and even then, with the clearing index, the airshed, it wasn't the best day for it. So for you guys, I still once agree, me being a firefighter, put your stuff in a trash can, put it in a truck, take it to the landfill. Try not to burn, because unfortunate things happen. So
I have a question on that though, for people who have larger parcels of land. Is there any flexibility in that? Let's just say if we land on an October 15th date, is there any way to bump that out to December 15th?
a true agricultural burn does have some leeway in the code.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking really even outside of that, where you're trying to get rid of some of these hazardous materials, but it's not agricultural related. But it really only gives residents, and I think it's just something for us to keep in mind, that it only gives you a month in the fall to really address that, and then it really is based on what the conditions are.
Yeah, so I will tell you that one of the fights that we have done as a fire service in general for burning is this time in the fall and spring is based off of the Wasatch Front, where they have very bad air quality certain times. The clearing index is what really causes, so that's that upper level atmosphere to carry the smoke out. In the Wasatch Front, you get in that bowl, it doesn't happen. Well, when you get out of that, we don't necessarily have that issues down here in the wintertime that they have. So we have tried to say, hey, lower the clearing index, open the burn window to a different time for us in the southern part of the state. And we got a little movement on it last year to where they actually dropped the clearing index from 500 to 250 to be able to burn down here, but they haven't moved date lines yet. And hopefully this year again, we're gonna push on that. Hopefully we can get that changed. Now, if you have somebody comes into the town office that has exactly what you're talking about, you know, they have a large limb pile, something that is cleanup that we can do, get in touch with us. I have a full wildland division that if we're not on deployment and we're around, which in the wintertime we're around, we would be happy to come up and help facilitate that, help somebody take care of that. There's some simple paperwork they've got to sign with us for liability issues, but we would be happy to come up and help supervise a burn, if it's a big issue like that.
And would there be a cost to the landowner?
No, if they're in district, we will not charge for that.
Okay, great.
So, okay.
Any other questions?
No, but you've been very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Feel free, if you guys have any questions, I know we normally have one of my battalion chiefs up here. Didn't see him tonight. But like I said, we're all kind of prepping for 9/11 tomorrow. Randy has my personal cell phone number. If you have to ask questions, get in touch with him. I always answer my phone. If I don't, I call back fairly quick. I'm happy to help any way we can and support the town any way that we possibly can. So, okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Joe.
Do you need me? Can I run away?
You can run away.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Run fast. Okay, now we'll take community questions for staff and comments. Please step up to the microphone. Make sure you've signed into the meeting. Step up to the microphone and state your name, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
I'm Shalise Heaton. I'm here tonight to help you, the town council, better understand my husband, Philip Heaton's federal indictment and tax mistakes. Mistakes that he is currently suffering for greatly while confined to federal prison. While we may never know why the IRS began their investigation of Philip, the IRS searched through years of Philip's taxes to find that he had underpaid his federal income taxes by approximately 15% from years 2017 to 2022. Philip would be the first to admit to these mistakes if he were here today. He has never denied making any mistakes, and in fact, he hired not one, not two, but 3 forensic accountants to help him figure out what those mistakes were. I think most everyone, having been investigated by the IRS over the past 10 years, would find they too have made unintentional mistakes on their taxes. Albert Einstein said it best when he said, "The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax." It is for this reason that the IRS and federal prosecutor Stephen Dent chose to make an example out of Philip. While Philip did everything he could to make it right, even before his indictment, including and not limited to paying all federal and state income taxes in full, along with the maximum fine the IRS and federal prosecutor could punish him with, he never had any criminal intent. When he realized the federal prosecutor would seek many years of prison time should he decide to go to trial, Philip did what he felt was best for his business, his employees, and most importantly, our little family, which was take a plea deal requiring him to plead guilty to exactly what the government requested, tax evasion, and serve 5 months in federal prison, 6 months of home confinement, and 18 months of probation. It was not an easy decision. And now we can see the effects that that decision will continue to have on his life, as we learn of a direct competitor wanting to revoke Philip's business license for his own personal gain. I encourage you, as a council, to consider all aspects of Philip's case and vote no to revoking his business license. Let it be known that the town of Springdale encourages and promotes hardworking small business owners and works together with them as a partner in their success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Robin Chansey. I wanted to mention your administrative action item C6, the discussion about Switchpoint taking over the development deal. Last fall, I spent a lot of time going down a rabbit hole of trying to understand, because I'm trying to get up to speed with what's happening in town, just with various things. And I spent hours reading the past minutes and documentation on the Mountain Country Home deal and town and you guys and everything that was being put together. And I still have to say I don't fully have a great grasp of it. It was a lot of information. And when I saw this on the agenda, this piece, this number 6, about, you know, I don't know what ended up happening with the Trapper Circle lot. For me, it kind of disappeared. I know it was going to be attached to the other, the Red Hawk transaction. That got changed. There were 5 different iterations of that arrangement. And I never could find what happened to Trapper Circle, except now I've read the documentation that says that the people who are mountain country are not putting their focus on Trapper Circle, they're focused on Red Hawk. And therefore, this new entity you guys have met with, who's interested in developing it, but there's this timeline of 2 weeks from now that they have to apply. And I thought, with all of that information that you guys have gone through and all of the work that you've done and the massive complexities that I saw in all of those agreements and contracts and iterations of contracts, the idea of moving in 2 weeks to switch gears and allow them the ability to begin to take steps to develop Trapper Circle, having that right to go and get funds, you know, go for funds on behalf of this project, seems kind of reckless to me. And it seems like their deadline, not yours. And so all I want to do is encourage you to be cautious, not jump into it because their deadline says we have to do this by October 1st or we may not get this money. That, I don't know anything about SwitchPoint except for the little bit of work that I did to figure out who they were and what they're about. But that sounds like something that they have to deal with, not a deadline that you should put on yourselves, this 2-week deadline, to make this decision, given the complexity of this entire situation. So that, I just wanted to say that about that.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Hello, Chris Johnson, local property owner, and I read through this. This is the property and information here with a proposed non-complying building issue. And I read through this and I just wanted to say real briefly, the motive, in my view, being keeping the structure from failure, and the purpose being making the structure safe. And that's everything really that I wanted to say. I think that's the motive and purpose behind. And specifically, this is the property here associated with Luke Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll move on to the, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mayor, thank you.
That's okay.
My name is Nathan Crane. I'm an attorney from Spencer Fane. I'm here on behalf of Zion Outfitters today on your agenda item C1. While I'm not a resident of Springdale, if you're, it's a beautiful town, I do love to come here. Zion Outfitters asked me to come here and let you know that they greatly enjoy the partnership that we've had with the town for the many years since our founding in 2011. As I sat outside Zion Outfitters today, just sitting in the benches there, I heard a multitude of languages. Clearly, people from around the world come and visit this beautiful area. And we feel very blessed that we're able to help outfit these people so they can have a safe, an enjoyable experience in the park itself. Mr. Heaton had kind of a combination of things transpire against him and for him in the mistakes that he made. And namely, that 15% that Mrs. Heaton talked about is related to the parking lots and to the showers. They have showers there that are coin operated. And under federal income tax, or federal law, the parking lot revenues did not need to be counted And that's kind of what led to the confusion of him not putting that, and that it should have been counted as income, but it didn't have to have sales tax on your federal income tax. And it was similar with the showers. I know we have submitted letters and a forensic report from our CPA, who was present, Mr. Gary France, to the town attorney that I believe he's told me he's passed to you. But we would encourage you to continue our partnership and letting you know that we value the town and we value the time that we've had here, and we want to continue to do business in this great town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
My name is Bryce Jones. I'm also not a resident of Springdale, although I'd love to be. I just can't convince my wife to come up here. But I'm here to also speak on Zion Outfitter, Philip Heaton, good friend of mine. And I've known him for a lot of years. I recognize him for his character and his contributions to the community, not only where we live, but also here in Springdale. And I know him to be an honest, trustworthy person, that he is always willing to take the short end of the stick and make it right by everybody he deals with. And so I wanted to speak on his behalf today and just plead that he has contributed a lot to the community over the years, not to just Springdale, but other areas. And he's done as much as he possibly can for the park and so many visitors that come here, that they can have a good experience, that they can be safe in all that they do. And in all the years I've known him, he's always been one to put forward his best foot to take what he's been blessed with and share it with others. And so as I see this come across the desk, I can't help but think that if there's an erroneous business error that could be ruled by this council that takes that away from him, I worry a little bit about the precedence of other business owners here in Springdale that maybe have made similar mistakes. I don't know any business owner that's started, built, ran a business without making any mistakes on things. And as those happen, I would hope that the city would understand that he's done everything he can to make it right. The city has not come up a penny short on anything, neither is the state nor the federal government. There wasn't malicious intent, and I look at that as being, this is a good upstanding member of the community that wants to contribute as much as possible and continue to contribute as much as possible. And just as an example, Airbnb for years and years, within the last 10 years, has not been collecting sales tax, Utah transient tax, and room taxes and things like that. And there's over 50 Airbnbs in Springdale right now that are owned by people that live and work here. And if they hadn't been collecting those taxes, the city is short that money for several years. And that's been within the last 10 years as well, under the same provisions that this is even on the agenda. And I'm not here to sling mud, but it's just one of those things that a lot of people go in to start something and they aren't aware of what certain guidelines and things are. And as soon as they find out about it, you can tell their heart by what they attempt to do. And I can see that Philip Heaton did everything he could to make it right and square everything up with everybody he possibly could. And, that may not go for everybody, but I think that if you look at what the intentions were, you look at the good of the community, you look at what Zion Outfitter has done, and what the continued benefit would be to the community and Zion National Park and all the visitors that come here would be to vote against taking his license, because it's something that's going to continue to benefit the community in Springdale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Noel Benson. I just want to make a quick comment about
Could you state your name for the recording?
Noel Benson. I just want to make a quick comment about C3. And I would just ask that you maybe consider the incredible latitude that the town gave Flanagan's concerning nonconformity when they went for their remodel. Two of you were on the planning commission when that vote came down, and I was on there too. And I would just ask that you look at the history and the precedents that have been set in the past before we potentially deny a resident the opportunity to build their forever home here in Springdale. Thanks.
Thank you.
Going. Oh, Gil.
Hi, Gil Kiefer. I have a person that I watch on TV that says, watch what they do, not what they say. And I'd like to talk about Zion Outfitters. This is a little bit hard for me, so within the last 2 years, they finally became compliant with the bike regulations for Zion National Park, being able now to offer Class 1 bikes. They still are incompliant or non-compliant with the bell regulations. I've suggested to them many times that they put mirrors on their bikes. They just started to do that. I'm just concerned that they talk a good game, but they're not. To me, they were one of my, as a bike liaison, I go and visit them probably once, twice, 3 times a year, and so I have insight into their business practices rather than just their business finances. I know nothing about that. But as far as business practices, they are possibly my worst customer as far as meeting the regulations for the park and just providing safe equipment on their bicycles. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, my name is Casey Jones. So appreciate the council and Mayor Bruno's thoughtful consideration of Zion Outfitter. I watched the live stream from the August 13th meeting and really appreciated the approach that the council and mayor that you took and the city staff in approaching this. So first wanted to acknowledge that, and also to share, I have worked in Springdale in the past, so I spent a couple of years here working for the Zion Forever project, and so I had both a personal and a professional relationship with Zion Outfitter. And even though I would never supposed to speak on behalf of the Forever project, my experiences working with them were always positive. And one thing that I appreciate about Zion Outfitter that I feel like is something that they do where they say what they mean is the fact that their growth in a town where I can't even imagine the issues that you grapple with growth, their growth has been organic. They do not have a heavy social media presence. They're not aggressively pushing visitation, which I know is always a prime concern, as is evidenced by they have fewer followers than all their competitors. So I really appreciate that they do provide an essential service in an organic way that park visitors are asking for. And again, just wanted to express my appreciation to you as a mayor and a council and to the city staff for the hours you've dedicated to this, and just thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like that may be it. So let's move to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve a consent agenda that includes a review of the monthly purchasing report, the minutes from August 13, 2025 and August 26, 2025, and Proclamation 2025-05 proclaiming September 17th to 23rd, 2025 as Constitution Week in Springdale.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Jack, second I'll say by Randy.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Randy,
Jack, aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, continued from August 13th, 2025 Town Council meeting, is possible direction to town staff to begin the business license revocation process for Zion Outfitters located at 7 Zion Park Boulevard, Springdale, Utah, per Town Code 3-1-12. And the staff contact is Erin Emerson.
Thank you. Greg's actually going to get us started, I believe.
Yep, thanks, Mayor. So under the town code, as was discussed at last month's meeting, there's a provision that says if local business is, or the owners of that business are, implicated or convicted of criminal action, federal or state, that it creates grounds for the town to pursue revocation of that business's license. It's important to note, though, that the language and directive in the ordinance is discretionary by use of the term may, and so it's not at all a mandatory procedure or directive to the town by way of those ordinances. So it's truly discretionary action on the part of the town as to whether, based on the circumstances and information as the town has received it and reviewed it, it decides that this issue is worthy of moving things to the next stage of the process, which would be for the town to send out, if the town decided it wanted to pursue revocation of the business license, then it would, by ordinance and state law, be required to issue a written notice to the licensee, sign outfitter, of the town's intent to convene a hearing at some point in the future. It would provide the date and outline the procedures for that hearing, at which the licensee, sign outfitter, would be entitled to be represented by counsel and have witnesses, and it would basically function like a little administrative hearing or administrative trial, at which the town would receive all of the evidence and then determine whether it wanted to revoke the license. And so that process is laid out pretty straightforwardly in the town code and also state code, and lots of cases annotating the state code. And so truly the decision, and the only decision for the town council tonight, is whether, having received a request pursuant to this ordinance, the town wants to move things to the next stage of preparing for a revocation hearing, at which it would then determine whether or not to revoke the license. So that's all that can be decided tonight. It's not whether the license should be revoked or not, but whether to take things to the next procedural stage.
Thanks for that clarification. And I also wanted to mention that we've received all the letters and have read them all. So in case you're wondering, we have seen all of the letters. With that, we can start deliberation.
Greg, at last meeting, we talked about you were going to obtain certified court records for us.
Yes.
Would that be if we proceed to a hearing?
All of that could be evidence that you would consider in,
Okay.
in determining whether, I mean, the fact of the matter is the licensee, or the individual who owns the licensee business was convicted of a crime, and that's been acknowledged, here in the meeting and in all the available court records. And so is that answering your question? I mean, those records are public, and the records that were provided were copies of the indictment and the plea agreement and the judgment. And,
Okay.
And so those are all public records that are available. Yeah. So that if the town decided to move to the next stage of things, then that certainly would be evidence that it could consider in evaluating whether to revoke a business license.
So, Mr. Harmon, on the one hand, we're not deciding if the license is revoked tonight. We know that, because there needs to be due process, right?
Correct, yep. Substantive and procedural, yep.
And Mr. Heaton is certainly due process. Isn't the town also, shouldn't the town get due process in this? And the reason I ask this is we can decide not to go to a hearing, which in a sense denies the town itself the due process that I think we deserve.
Well, are you asking for, I'm not sure if you're,
No,
are you asking a question or
what I'm
just
suggesting
stating
is that if we
an
make a
opinion,
decision
or-
tonight not to go forward with this, then we have denied the people in town their due process.
Because you're thinking the people in town would be part of the evidence? Like the people in town have a case?
Well, this
Or
is
us as
an adversarial situation, right? You have Mr. Heaton on one side and the town at large on the other.
I don't think it's an adversarial situation. I think that the question we all had, and my understanding was that we wanted to know whether Mr. Heaton's business had paid the town the taxes, the sales taxes to which we're entitled. And I think that the account has shown us evidence that we have, in fact, it's a different process. There's a point of sale collection of sales tax. It goes to the state and the state reimburses us. And we need to talk about this, but I personally am satisfied that the town has not been heard in any way, and that Philip Heaton is being punished by the IRS for actions he took with them, but I don't think the town has been heard. So our decision here is to decide whether we want to further take this any further, and possibly even, I could use the term pile on. So that's, I think we need to make that decision. Is the town damaged? Do we want to pursue this trial? I think that's where I am.
So I think for me, it's, asking the question, is there evidence of data that we have not seen to base up the statements that the town has not been damaged? And I guess that's a question for all of us, is that important to us that we see the physical data, the physical information to back up the claim that we've heard from the attorneys, that the town has in fact received payment of the taxes that are due.
Are you saying you're not satisfied with the affidavit from the accountant? Is that?
Well, I guess that's my question is, are we satisfied with the affidavit, or do we need to see something in addition to that?
Well, I think we've read the documents. I just would feel more comfortable if they were presented in an official hearing.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm comfortable that we've all read the documents. I just would feel more comfortable if they were presented in a hearing where we discuss whether the license is denied or not. I think it would make it more official. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I just think that due process calls for this hearing. And I don't believe that a claim made by another business owner somehow dilutes the fact that the town code calls for the license to be revoked at our discretion. And I think that there should be a formal hearing on this. I can tell you what my mind is right now, but I won't do that. But I still think that would make it more official. My opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying there, Pat. And I think Barbara has said, and I agree, I think we've seen enough documentation at this point to understand that the town has not been damaged by this. I think we've also seen a lot of documentation indicating that this was not a malicious action in any way. It was not an intent to deceive or to, to do something under the table or underhanded. And, we've heard that reparations have been made to cover both the tax liability and the interest and the penalties. And I kind of look at if we kind of move forward, it puts a lot more it penalizes a person to not know what the status of their business license is going to be. And I really feel, even if we went to a public hearing, I really feel like we're not going to get any more information that's really going to change my mind that the town has not been harmed. The person has not only paid with money to satisfy the IRS, to satisfy interest in penalty payments, but also is paid with time served. And I don't really feel like we need to move any further on this personally.
I'm also, and it's beyond the Heaton family, it's the employees of the business. There are a lot of people that are impacted by this, and the uncertainty is difficult for everybody, even us. So, Kyla, you haven't said too much.
I would think that a hearing would be necessary if we really needed to get into the nitty-gritty of what harm was done to the town. And as far as this like not being very official, I mean, a hearing would be very official because we would have attorneys involved, and more so than tonight, we already have attorneys involved. This has been noticed. Obviously, people got the notice. This is the biggest turnout we've had for a meeting in months. So people heard, people have had the opportunity to come, and I would be really hesitant to have this hearing potentially, Pat, turn into a he said, she said, and character assassination, and that's really not what we're going after, in my opinion. We were curious to know how much harm had been done to Springdale and the amount of taxes that we did not receive. And I do trust the affidavit. I don't really want to be looking over spreadsheets. I think that there's a reason that the forensic investigators have the longevity that he stated in his credentials, and the fact that the courts accepted his data and that he's relaying that to us. I feel confident in that, and I don't think I need to see any more evidence. I think Springdale has not been harmed. I mean, it's a shame that it happened. I think he's paid his dues. He's complying with what the government, the federal government and the IRS wanted him to do. They've made an example of him, and I think we need to let it stand. And so I am not in favor of revoking his license.
Or of a hearing.
Or of a hearing, yeah. No, I don't, yeah, I'm not in, yeah, either.
Okay. Because our decision is obviously
Just
whether we're gonna
just
take
to
it further
proceed
to a
with the hearing.
And I think at a hearing, we're going to see the same kind of affidavit that we saw in our packet, and I'm not sure where we're going to get more information.
I think it'll be details that will lead us back to exactly what we currently have on our desk, which maybe would be comforting for some people, and I can understand that, but I personally feel comfortable with what we've received.
And I think that being said, I'm kind of surprised we didn't receive those details. But maybe maybe that's premature, and that would come out more in the hearing. But
yeah,
I'm not.
The actual details of the findings of what exactly, how much Springdale was paid in taxes, because I don't believe we've seen
I thought
that.
it was in the affidavit.
there were percentages.
Well, yeah, we've heard the percentage.
And
there was
we haven't
estimations
estimated
of
number.
eight, there were some 6-digit numbers in there.
Yeah, there were numbers. And under.
There were numbers, and we go forward, there's going to be a lot more numbers.
Yeah.
Well, the question I would ask, if there was a hearing, and apparently there won't be one, I've read all the letters, and the word intent is thrown around a lot. There was no intent. But the indictment 10 times calls out the word intent. So my question would have been, why did the IRS conclude there was intent if everybody claims there wasn't? Now, we don't have what they call the 302 reports. Mr. Hardman's familiar with those. That's the actual agent reports about what they found out. But I'm hard-pressed to believe that any federal agency would include intent if they didn't have some sense that there was one. And I know the letters, all 12 of them, claim there was no intent. And I believe you can make mistakes. I forget who it was that came up here a little while ago and said, look, you can make mistakes like this, and we all do, I realize that. But that's the one thing that hangs up in my head. Why did they, in 10 counts of the indictment, claim there was intent? Across 5 years, 2018 to 2022. And only one of those counts, one of the 10, did Mr. Heaton plead guilty to. And that's fine. I mean, I understand what plea bargaining is all about. I'm very familiar with that. But that's the one thing I'm hung up on.
And I don't personally feel like we're here to decide whether there was intent or not.
Exactly my point.
I think as representatives of the town of Springdale, we're here to address the fact that this is a business owner with a business license that we issued. And is he doing everything that we expect of him? And I would say if he's paying his Springdale sales taxes, now Gil's issue is separate, and we probably need to talk about that, and we can work with them on that. But I think we're here to represent Springdale. We're not here to represent the IRS or the Justice Department, and so I don't even want to argue intent, because I don't think that's our issue.
So those would be, to just set my compass straight, those would be the considerations that we would look at. No harm to the town, clearly a benefit to the town, there's no doubt about that. Not just financially, but in terms of employment, in terms of recreation. If those are the only parameters, or a group of the parameters that we need to consider not to go forward with the license, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure there's nothing else in the background we need to be thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do see your point, Pat, but I am thinking still of the opinion that there isn't anything going on in the background.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'd be interested to hear what other council members think, if there's concern with this intent.
So if another business did the same thing, and they had employees, regardless of the number, if they were a financial and recreational benefit to the town, if the same considerations apply to a different business, we would be okay with doing the same thing. Right?
I would.
Okay.
If we had an affidavit and we felt
Exactly.
confident that the town hadn't been harmed. I'm trying to think of an analogy, and I'm not landing right on it, so I'll let somebody else talk for it.
Well, my concern's been answered.
Okay, because I am, let's say I file my taxes and I take liberties with my deductions, and I'm audited and I'm penalized. That really has, maybe you think it does, but really has nothing to do with other parts of my life. I'm not punished. You know, my husband won't divorce me because I cheated on my taxes. They're separate issues.
I don't know.
Well, maybe he would. We'll ask him.
We'll ask
But-
him, where is he?
But yeah, I
Well,
think
and again,
they're kind of separate
and again,
issues.
I don't want to beat this poor dead horse. But the punishment Mr. Heaton has suffered criminally, in my mind, could be clearly separated from the regulatory action we're taking now, right? Or the regulatory action apparently we're not taking. It's like getting arrested for DUI, you go to jail, but your license gets suspended, two different things, right?
Right.
Okay. It's not like he's being punished twice for the same crime, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I hear what you're saying in that it's, part of it is are we in fact doing our due diligence in addressing an ordinance that we have on the books? And I think where it makes a little bit of a difference is that understanding that, it is a may, not will, and that if we felt that we were sitting here with information that is lacking, that may come out in additional process going forward with any type of a hearing, then I would say, yes, let's do that. I'm not sure we've heard that, anything that would warrant that yet. But I understand what you're saying as far as
I do too.
doing due diligence and following the process. in compliance with our ordinance. I think we're just lacking the information that takes us to that next step.
But the IRS is satisfied with the audit, the forensic report. I don't think I don't think my decision would be any better than the IRS's about whether it's adequate. I mean, I have an MBA, I have a finance background, but I still feel confident that we've got the information. And I'm here representing Springdale, not the IRS.
And I guess at this point, we feel comfortable that we don't expect anything additional to come forward. I guess that's a question, is what if we receive additional information? Does it come back before us?
I think we could bring it back up, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if we were to receive, like, we were to put this just to bed tonight, like, not pursue any further, but in a week or 2 months or 6 months or 6 years, something comes back up, I think we have every right to say, well, okay, we have more information. I could be mistaken, but I think because it is a May, and it would be pertaining to criminal.
So who can answer that question?
Well, I think 6 years might be a stretch, but if
Okay,
something were to
well,
come forward in the
statute of
next,
limitations, yeah.
few months or weeks or something, then you could, it's just a request that's been made for the town to move forward in a process that it could undertake. And you can very easily decide that based on what the information that we have before us presently, we don't feel that we have the need to proceed. And if in the future you should receive more or different information, then, you could reevaluate at that time.
So we could make a decision and a motion that says we choose not to pursue a hearing at this time.
Yeah, we choose not to, yeah.
Yeah, at this time, so. I mean, I don't know where more information would come from when we have the forensics report, but if something changed our minds, we could readdress it. Any further discussion, or does someone want to make a motion?
I have a motion. I move that we do not begin the business license revocation process for Zion Outfitters located at 7 Zion Park Boulevard in Springdale, per the discussion had at the September 10th meeting, unless we receive new information.
I'll second it.
Motion by Kyla, second by Pat.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Randy,
Jack, aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is local consent request for a banquet liquor license for Flanagan's Inn located at 450 Zion Park Boulevard, Springdale. Applicant is Cade Campbell, and the staff contact is Erin Emerson. And I saw Cade here. There's Cade. Hi, Cade. So if we have questions, he's here to answer those.
Thank you. So as you mentioned, Kate Campbell requests a local consent for a banquet liquor license for Flanagan's Inn located at 450 Zion Park Boulevard. An on-premise banquet license allows the storage, sale, service, and consumption of liquor, wine, heavy beer, and beer for contracted banquet activities or contracted privately sponsored events on the premises of a hotel. And as you mentioned, Kate's also here if you have any further questions.
Any questions for Cade? This is
I do
pretty.
have a question. So Kate, is this like room service but by the pool kind of thing? Or is this like events you'll have at the pool?
Cade Campbell, great question, Kyla. I should clarify that I'm being directed by the compliance officer with DABS. His name is Rob Hansen, and he's recommended this level of licensing for us. And it is for contracted banquets. That's a requirement that you have to satisfy to get these licenses, but it also allows you to have 3 sub-licenses that would be for the restaurant, for the spa, and then for the hotel. So we would indeed use this for room service and service in the spa building.
Other questions? So is this a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I have one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Town council, as a local business licensing authority, has reviewed this local consent request on September 10th, 2025, and gives consent to the Alcoholic Beverage Services Commission to consider the issuance of an on-premise retail alcohol license for a person to store, sell, offer for sale, furnish, or allow consumption of an alcoholic product on the premise of the applicant under the following authorities: Utah Code Sections 32B-1-202, 5-201, 5-203, and 5-205, and 5-206 to Flanagan's Inn Incorporated, located at 450 Zion Park Boulevard, Springdale, Utah, and authorizes the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Pat, second by Jack.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara?
Randy, aye.
Jack, aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a land use ordinance interpretation. It's a request for an interpretation of sections 10-21-3 and 10-21-8 of the town code regarding repair, maintenance, and removal of a non-complying building. The applicant is Luke Wilson, and the staff contact is Tom Danzy.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, this is a request for an interpretation of two sections of the ordinance regarding non-complying buildings. Just as brief background, whenever there is an uncertainty, ambiguity, or conflict in the code, the town council is authorized to resolve said ambiguity, uncertainty, or conflict. And in doing so, the council's interpretation then is because this is an interpretation of a land use ordinance that impacts the entire town, that interpretation would be binding throughout the town. And the section of the code that authorizes the town council to make an interpretation also indicates that the interpretation should be consistent with the general purposes and objectives of the land use ordinance. So as you're going through tonight, keep those two kind of guardrails in mind. I won't go through the specific details of the project that led to this request, because those details are kind of hashed out in detail in the staff report, and so rather than reproduce or replicate that, I won't do that here, but I'll ask if you have specific questions about that case, I will. The other reason is that this ordinance interpretation is a general ordinance interpretation, so it's not just binding on the specific site, it would be binding townwide. But essentially the ambiguity that is requested to be resolved is what it means to remove a non-complying building and what ordinary maintenance and repair of a non-compliant building means. Non-compliant buildings are those that when they were built complied with all aspects of the town code, but subsequent changes to the town code have placed that building in non-compliance. Those non-compliant buildings are allowed to remain, and they're even allowed to be altered and renovated, added to, and rehabilitated under the provisions of Chapter 10-21, Section 8. So however, if a non-compliant building is removed from the property, all future buildings must comply with the current land use ordinance. So essentially, what is being requested tonight is what does it mean to remove a building? The ordinance does not have a definition of what removal of a building means. It just says when a building is removed, all future buildings must comply. And the second issue is what is ordinary maintenance and repair of a non-compliant building? The ordinance does have a specific definition of what ordinary maintenance and repair means. So in that case, your interpretation should be consistent, or at least based upon the language in the code about what ordinary maintenance and repair means, not necessarily based on what you would interpret ordinary maintenance and repair to mean outside of that definition, right? So again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the property that generated the request. Unless you have questions about that property, I'd be happy to answer those.
So I have a question for you, not about the property. But in the staff report, it says that the town does not have a formal demolition permit process. but we've got 10-18A-6 demolition permits in the ordinance.
Exactly.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, so we, when somebody's demolishing a building, we ask them to give us a copy of their asbestos permit, or their asbestos clearance and their lead paint clearance. And those are the kind of the typical things that we would look for in a demolition permit. We don't have a formal process established, but this is probably a lesson learned that we need to have a more defined demolition permit process, so we have more certainty about what's going to be, what actions will transpire in a demolition project.
And Tom, we have a definition for a building.
That's correct.
And what
Building
does that say?
is a structure that has 4 walls and a roof.
What about?
And a dirt floor?
It doesn't mention, it says a building is a structure supported by 4 walls with a roof.
So no mention of a foundation.
So let me ask you, if I built a house with just on a dirt floor, that would be okay here in town?
Well, so obviously the building code is going to require certain elements like footings and a foundation.
So the foundation is part of the building?
If you're gonna live in it.
Well,
If it's just a shed, it's still a building, just not on a foundation.
it says here, removal of a building, which would be the 4 walls, the roof, and the dirt?
So
And,
this is exactly the interpretation that the council's being asked to make tonight.
Got it, okay.
Right?
Got it.
There is no definitive, you can remove this much or these elements or this part, but not this part. That is lacking in the ordinance, and that's what the council is asked to interpret tonight.
Got it.
So question, so we are not making a decision about this particular project. We are interpreting the code, but what our interpretation applies to this project and all future projects.
That's correct, and thank you for bringing that up, Mayor. Because of that, you'll notice that on the next item on the agenda is direction to the Planning Commission. So if you're going to make an interpretation based on what the code says, the best practice then, because this would be binding on future future properties, all future properties in the town, the best practice would be then to make that explicit in the code. And you could do you could do any number of things. You could make an interpretation tonight based on what the code says, and then direct the Planning Commission in your next agenda item to say, okay, this is what our interpretation was. Now go in the code and make that explicit. You could make an interpretation tonight, say, well, this is what we think the code says now, but we're not necessarily, that's not necessarily the policy we want, so we want to change it. And so you could direct the Planning Commission to say, well, we want you to change the policy in the code. But the reason we have that next agenda item on that next item on the agenda is to allow you to give the direction to the Planning Commission to allow them to start the process to amend the ordinance, and that will fix that uncertainty.
So I guess what I wonder, we have a lot of details on this project. We saw the plans that were submitted, the walls that were to be kept. Is that an appropriate part of this conversation, or is that irrelevant when we're just interpreting the code?
No, absolutely. So the reason I didn't go into the details is because it's in the packet material, right? You can absolutely use those details to inform your decision tonight. I mean, this is why this is being brought up to you, is because the incident that's come up with that property. So absolutely, you can talk about that and use that as an example. Just be aware that whatever you decide tonight will be binding not only on this property, but on all properties throughout the town.
So we can't do this project a favor, and because it will bind everything from here on.
Well, you don't want to do any properties a favor.
Right, but I mean, we're not talking about this property tonight. We're talking about moving forward, future. Okay.
Exactly. Now, again, what you can do is if you interpret the code, based on tonight's discussion, you say, yeah, this way that we're interpreting the code is what the code currently says. This is what we agree, but we don't like that, and we want to change that policy. You can certainly do that in your next agenda item.
And this is just deliberation, right? It's not a public hearing or anything. So this is the time to ask questions. So my question, given that the submittal showed walls that were to be kept, should a change order have been submitted to you to do something different that would have then given you a chance to say, this is not going to be a remodel?
Yeah, so this gets back to the point that Jack raised earlier, that in the absence of a demolition permit process that says this is exactly what we're going to be changing, the drawing in the design development review is non-binding, right? It's
Okay.
illustrative of what their intent is, and it's illustrative of what they're intending to do, and it helps us as we review that project for compliance or consistency with the non-compliant building statute. And that's one of the reasons why when a change was made, staff's determination was, well, yeah, this is different than what you applied, what you showed us, but in the absence of a formal demolition permit process, that it's not as if they were out of compliance with any of their approvals.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I think when it talks about, I'm going to go back to my original point, removal of the building includes the foundation. And when I looked at this, I thought, well, the walls are gone, the roof is gone, but the foundation is there. And in many codes, and I'll read one from a different town, it says that physical dismantling and disposing of all above and below ground portions, including the foundation, or any combination thereof. So I think in this regard, the building has not completely been removed, even though it looks like it.
So I looked at a number of different forums on building code, international building code, and it was really kind of a mixed bag. You know, some people seem to agree that the foundation is considered part of the building, but not everybody. But I guess for me, you know, I feel like the foundation is integral to the building itself. And I think we need to make sure that, you know, we're clear on that. We're actually talking about buildings and not sheds. I struggle a little bit if we want to classify it all as the same. So I mean, maybe to get the conversation going, I put some things in writing that I'd like to read to you, because I kind of felt this project really had a number of issues or a number of actions that the ordinance did not adequately cover. And I totally disagree that you can totally remove a superstructure, the building above the ground, and call it maintenance. But I can see where the wording of the ordinance as it currently is kind of opens that door a little bit. So I threw a few things together that I'd just like to quickly read to you, and maybe we can go from there. So one of it is, when is a building removed? A building is considered removed when both the superstructure and the foundation has been removed. Both are dependent upon the other to be considered a building. So I kind of broke this down into...
And where is that from, Jack?
I wrote that.
Okay.
And then I broke it down into three categories, which I really felt applied to this project, but it was all trying to be done under the maintenance ordinance. So I'm a little uncomfortable with ordinary maintenance. So I have preventive or routine maintenance and repair is done for the purpose of furthering the useful life of existing building components or to address safety concerns. It does not involve complete removal of the building superstructure or foundation. The other category I felt like really stood out is rehabilitation, renovation, or alteration is done to change, modify, or alter existing building components. It may result in complete or partial replacement of the building superstructure or foundation, but does not include both. And then the last category is demolition is done to remove all of the building superstructure and foundation, and the building is therefore considered removed. Demolition is authorized through a building or demolition permit. And I guess I really, really want to make the point of the importance of a demolition permit. There's just so many things prior to the removal to address safety issues, to make sure utilities are disconnected correctly. And then the permit itself that talks about asbestos abatement and disposal of debris, among a whole host of other things that should be identified as part of a demolition permit. So I think that I was surprised, that that's lacking, and I would really strongly say we need to have that. So anyway, I just kind of throw all that out to see if that helps get us to where we need to be.
I read one article that talked about the trigger for calling this a non-conforming building or having it conform with current code, and it had to do with the percentage of the building that was demolished.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that would be, but it was an interesting way to approach it.
I read that as well, and I think that gets to be a little bit difficult if you're like, when are you at 80%? So when I drafted this, it really was for the purpose of conforming and non-conforming buildings. But I guess the starting point is, for us to reach agreement on what is considered a building, recognizing that prior work that's been done does not recognize that the foundation is part of the building. So, what do you think, Mr. Engineer?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to, since this is as Tom said, this is something that's going to affect everything from now on. And so let's look at what we've done, what's the precedent have we done so far. And in the, Luke raised the example of Flanagan's and what was done there. And what was done there was a renovation that included some removal, but it kept some of the building. And we as a council felt that fit in very well with everything. There was never any question that they were removing the whole thing. And then we came up with the old Canyon Ranch property. And as stated in this, in our staff report, when the council looked at that, we found a building that had problems structurally with termites, and we talked about rebuilding in the same place, the same footprint, a new building there, and we decided that because it was a non-conforming building, that we would tear it down and we would not try to use it, because we would be setting a bad precedent of, it's okay to tear down the structure, the superstructure, whatever you want to call it, above the foundation, and then replace it in a non-conforming situation. And I thought that was a good precedent, and I think we really need to look at what the town has done. So when we talk about what is removal of a building, the foundation is integral to the building, but when people built in Springdale, initially, a lot of times, they just piled a bunch of rocks there and then started building up from there, and that was their foundation. And I know I've had experience with some of the buildings in the town where when we got down and looked at it, that's what was underneath the building. It was just a bunch of rocks. And so, I'm really struggle with saying that removing everything from the foundation up and starting over and building something does not go against our code. We, as a town council, we looked at Canyon Ranch, we made a decision there. If we change our mind here, I think we're changing a precedent.
With the
That we established.
opportunity to make immediate, direction to the planning commission to clarify.
I think we definitely need to do that. Obviously, there's issues.
Yeah.
And I think we definitely need to address those issues going forward.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I think that's an important thing. We shouldn't be having these discussions. The code should be as clear as possible on what we can do, and that's what we keep doing. And I've mentioned this before, but back when I was first here, the town had an ordinance that was open to interpretation, and the town ended up in a bunch of lawsuits because of that. And so what we ended up doing in the early 90s is we rewrote the ordinance and made a much more restrictive and detailed ordinance, because that's what we need, so we won't get in situations like this. And obviously, this ordinance, these two sections are not detailed enough that here we are in a situation where we don't.
Well, I guess I want to make sure
It's
I'm
not
clear
clear.
though where you're coming from, because this project in particular, the decision needs to be made whether or not the building has been removed or not. The foundation is there. The proposal is to rebuild on the existing footprint.
And we were going to do that with the Canyon Ranch.
And so my position on that is that if we agree that the foundation is part of the building, then exactly what is being proposed should be allowed.
But you just
And
said
why
something
didn't we
important.
do-
You said part of the building. I
Uh,
mean, it's
no.
not a building, it's a foundation. And I see what you're saying, and I struggle too, because on the one hand, we don't have a demolition permit process. But if I submit a plan saying, here's what I'm demolishing, that's what I could be expected to demolish. That is my demolition plan. I think it's a gray area. I'm really struggling with this. I don't think that this is a remodel. I think this is a demolition.
Yes.
The question that, for me, the only question remaining is, because there's a foundation, does that mean it hasn't been completely demolished?
Right.
And I guess that's the matter at hand. But a building without a foundation is still a building. I don't think a foundation without a building is still a building.
Right.
Say that again.
No, and I agree, and that was my example. That's what I was saying.
You
There
lost me on that
were
one.
structures built in Springdale that really didn't have what we would consider a foundation. It had some rocks piled there, and then they started going from there. Or sometimes they built on dirt.
But this
And that was a
particular
building.
home has a foundation.
That was a building.
Yeah.
It's not on dirt.
But I mean, I think moving forward, we have to think beyond what happened in the past as far as a rock foundation. That is no longer relevant today. So,
Well, yeah, but I think what Barbara was saying was, do you consider a demolition if you take, do you consider a building to be a building with a foundation, or if you take the building away, is it still a building if there's just a foundation there?
right.
Or if you leave the building there and take the foundation away?
yeah.
And I feel like this particular project, I don't have a problem with a building being built and the foundation on that footprint of that building. But what I don't want to have is a precedent where all of a sudden everybody's leaving just enough of a foundation at the front of the lot so that they don't have to comply with setbacks. That's going to change the whole appearance of the town. And if we're making a decision that's not about this project but about moving forward, that's a different conversation for me than deciding about this building and what might be an honest mistake.
But, and I hear what you're saying, but I mean, keep in mind that we already say, if it's an existing non-conforming building, they don't have, they're not able to expand it.
Right.
They can't expand the non-conforming use, so it has to stay on the footprint.
And the other
True.
component is deterioration, right? I mean, the photographs show that this place was just a mess. And I don't know that someone could go in and say, well, I'm not gonna tear the whole building down. I'll tear off wall 1 and build it, then wall 2 and build it and go all the way around and piecemeal it. I mean, that would be ridiculous. In the end, it would comply with not demolishing the building. But it's just easier to take the structure down and build it up from there. I don't think someone's gonna say, you know, I don't like my house the way it is now, I'm gonna tear it down, leave the foundation, and build something different on the same footprint. This has the other component of deterioration, to the extent where it wasn't safe.
It does, and so what I hear everybody kind of agreeing on is that there is gray area, and we can't all agree on what the gray area is or means, but what we don't want is to open up this can for the future. So I think really, I don't want to call it like a safety net, but the thing I'm kind of relying on is that when we send this to Planning Commission, make that direct, you know, it's our next agenda item, and we make our next conversation about how we want to respond to this. If we really feel the need to close up this uncertainty, I think that is our opportunity to do that and to make sure that we don't get a project in that takes advantage of this same thing. Because I think that would be unfortunate without mega oversight. Maybe, you know, in the right circumstances, if we allow for reconstruction after a fire or a flood or an earthquake, why don't we allow reconstruction for deterioration?
Right.
So in my mind, I have a little bit of a struggle with that, but I do see this could open up just a huge thing that now what is deterioration, and we've sent on this big thing to Planning Commission that could really be super intensive. And I think more what I would like to see is that we kind of decide about our uncertainty here, what we're comfortable doing with that, knowing that we're going to turn around and give Planning Commission action. And I'm pretty sure that if Planning Commission is working on something, that means that, you know, our ability to accept applications on currently opened code items is limited, or, you know, kind of stops for a little bit, right? Like if they're currently working on building square footage, that maybe we would not be talking about giving people extra square footage, because we would be opening that in Planning Commission. Is anybody following me on that?
No.
No?
I was.
Not, yeah. So I guess I'm saying, like, if Planning Commission gets to work on this immediately, I'm not concerned about us opening up this floodgate of like non-compliant buildings coming in, because they're gonna get to work on it immediately.
Well, and Jack said something that it can't be expanded. It can't be
Right,
expanded
it can't.
to add to the nonconformity. So that's
Yes.
already kind of taken care of there.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's very clear, that that's explicitly spelled out, that you cannot expand on that non-compliance.
And I think if the Planning Commission knows that we're not talking about a wanton demolition, I just want to wreck it because I don't like this style, I want that style. I mean, in a case where, this one, for instance, where I think the demolition is clearly warranted.
Yeah, except it can't be done and couch it under maintenance. It's clearly not maintenance.
And then maybe that part needs to be changed.
But it's the way we've defined maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So-
I mean, I think that's where we need to talk about that there are other categories within a building project, and I read them off, that we're silent on, that would allow for that work to take place. But we're trying to couch everything under maintenance, and it's just not, it's just not maintenance.
Exactly.
I mean, staff says the question for the council to consider is whether a complete replacement of the building exclusive of the foundation is ordinary maintenance and repair. As stated in this, in our code.
And it's the last section of the ordinary maintenance definition that does not say how much has to be removed or cannot be removed. What has to be remaining?
And that needs to be clarified.
That needs to be clarified, but we need to decide tonight, like, what does that mean for, yeah, what does that mean? Right now, as it is, what does that mean?
Well, and that's the tricky part, because we can see why they thought that this was okay to go ahead, expecting to rebuild on that same foundation and footprint. But we made a different decision about the town. So, you know, what I wish we had the option to do is to decide about this project and then separately decide about the code moving forward. But it sounds like
Absolutely. We
Yeah,
can.
I don't think
And we
we
can.
need to. I just don't think we need to.
Decide separately?
Hmm?
Decide separately about the two issues, or?
I mean, I don't think that this project, we need to decide anything on this. Well, what we need to decide on so that this can move forward is, has this building been removed?
Based
And
on the definition.
Based on the amount of demolition, and that the way it currently, the staff report indicates the interpretation of removal is removal of the superstructure. The building is gone. But now we're talking about, is it in fact gone if we recognize the foundation is part of the building? So the superstructure's missing, the foundation's there. Moving forward, a new superstructure will come up from that existing foundation. So the building is technically still there. All the utility hookups, everything is still there. It's just missing the top.
Yeah,
And I think the building has not been removed in total.
well, and I kind of rely on staff a lot of times, because they know this process best. And the last sentence here, or the second last sentence said, staff determined complete demolition of all framing of the structure was a removal of the building under section 1021.3.
I think where I'm not comfortable though with it, and that's not to disagree with Tom, it's just it's silent on the foundation.
And there's a reason it's coming to us. I think, you know, when I think about the history center building, and as planning commissioners, I think it was Jack and Barbara and me who were on planning commission. And I can't remember exactly what piece of code we were working on, but I was a brand new baby planning commissioner. And Jack, you said something that has stuck with me forever. And it's like spirit and intent. The spirit and the intent of the code. And I think when the town is an applicant, we are fully aware of our spirit and intent. And when we write code, we're fully aware of our spirit and intent. And because of that, bits and like little holes start to form. And kind of this goes to Randy's like, code is organic and we have to keep this, the situation's dynamic and we need to always keep moving. So I think when we as the town apply or thought about the application of the History Center, we were recognizing our spirit and intent of this ordinance. We get another applicant who sees a different spirit and intent of the ordinance, which is when you have a problem, and it's why it's on our desk. So when I think about like, well, we didn't choose to go that way with the History Center in the past, now we have a different applicant, a different set of eyes, and a different opinion. And just that's kind of been my mindset, and I don't know that that answers like where to go from here, but just a way that my mind has kind of thought about the spirit and intent.
The question I have about the History Center, wasn't there a staff note that the foundation was somehow broken or not in good repair, that it could be repaired, but that it would have to have been repaired?
Yeah, I think it was.
Wasn't there some note in
It
there
was a
about
bad, there was something wrong with it.
So
Tom, it
in
looks
my
like Tom
mind, the
has
staff then recognized, unless I'm mistaken, that the foundation was part of the building. That was a long way around, but.
Tom?
Sorry, not to address that specific point, but to interrupt for another reason. So the property owner has indicated that they are here, their contractor is here, and their engineer is here, and it may be helpful for the council to hear some additional information about the project from the contractor and the engineer to help provide additional information to help the council make their determination. This is not a hearing, so you're not obligated to take that comment, but they've made that available to you if you'd like to hear those comments.
Okay, we'll see if we have questions. Right now, I feel like the decision we're making is the foundation of building. Is the building still there? Isn't that the issue that remains for us?
Well, that's one of the questions that we
Okay.
have to answer.
Yeah,
And I
and
want to
I
ask,
also-
Tom, would these same people be able to address that particular point?
Say that
Okay.
again.
I think that's an interpretation. I mean, that's the purview of the
Right,
council.
okay.
Is the foundation part of the building or not?
Got it.
That's entirely up to you to set that policy, right?
Right.
You've
Right.
referenced some jurisdictions that have established the policy that yes, it is. You've referenced
Mm-hmm.
some jurisdictions that have established the policy, no, it's not. So that's completely up to your
Got it.
discretion.
Okay.
So, I mean, I actually would like to hear, I can tell this guy's chomping at the bit to say something.
Is this who do you want to hear from? The engineer or
The engineer. I think that would be helpful.
Could you state your name, please?
Yes, I'm Paul Blackmore with BlackRock Engineering. I'm the structural engineer on the project. I really appreciate the questions that are posed. We are trying to set a policy. Please note, particularly with this building, at no point did we change the plans that were approved. We removed what we felt was necessary. To your point, the idea of taking pieces out and trying to replace like that is somewhere in there that's getting comically out of line. We were hoping to leave most of that structure. Our plans showed that. When we got into removing the stucco, I was called and they're just like, hey, we need you to look at this. And at first we just said, okay, let's just remove the parts that are damaged and start replacing it. We did it by hand, we did it carefully. But as we went, I have many more pictures if you'd like to see them, but there was mold and there was rot. There were places where I could actually grab plywood and squeeze water out of it. Okay? At no point did we change our intent. We did not add square footage to our approved plans. We did not change the outside envelope of the building. We addressed problems that we found in progress so that when we're done, that the owners actually have a good investment, that they're not going to have a problem. We're protecting the value of the town. Please note, as far as is the building still there, we never touched the foundation and we never touched the frame floor. The crawl space, floor, all of that's in place. We only removed the parts that were damaged. Okay, so I believe we're well within the confines of our building permit that says this is what you're going to have when you're done. We acted, in all sincerity, I can't imagine, I'd be much more afraid if I was standing here asking you permission if I could leave the mold, if I could leave the rot. That's where I would expect you to stand up and say, no, you're not. The other thing on policy, because this is a policy question, and I really appreciate good codes. It makes my life much easier. On the policy, if this house has rot, it is reasonable to say that other buildings in town are going to have this similar problem. I would recommend, okay, they coordinated with their engineer. I have a certificate in this type of mitigation. We did address it carefully. We did address it properly. In your demo plan, if you'd like to have a report written or more data to that effect, that would make sense, so someone didn't just say, oh yeah, we were doing rot. We can define it and we can give you a full report. The only reason that wasn't done is nowhere in the code did it say to do that. We thought we were doing a really good job. Okay, this wasn't us trying to get away with something. This was us being really proud of what we were doing. We were going to build a beautiful home. And so, as far as code and policy,
and respecting that we will probably run into this again on other houses, we just simply need to put in a part that says, hey, if you have areas that are damaged, we expect you to replace them. We expect it to be good. And please note, that's defined by how much damage there is. But please note, we did not tear down the building. We kept the foundation, we kept the floor. We kept all of the intent to build it as per the building plans. At no point did we change any of that. We simply removed the damaged areas. And in that spirit of building a good home, that's how we ended up here. And at no point did somebody tell us, hey, you're going too far, or hey, we've got to clarify this. Someone obviously went and took those pictures. Those aren't all my pictures there. Somebody was there. Somebody saw us doing this. At no point did someone say, you got to stop at this point. At no point did somebody warn us that we were entering an area where all of a sudden we might all of a sudden be in a huge problem. We were diligently doing a good job. And they did it under the guidance of their engineer. They did it carefully by hand. They didn't just demo the building. We are in the process of updating our plans to try to mitigate the fact that, well, things have changed. But we didn't change the envelope. We didn't change the final walls. We didn't change what this thing's going to be when it's done. So on the ordinances, as far as what I would recommend you write, is have a provision in there that, hey, if there's extensive damage, first of all, you could write it in there saying you're going to have someone trained in that field confirm it, so it's not just someone deciding to tear down their building. That makes sense. Please note, in today's world, I don't think there's a single definition of a residential building that doesn't have a foundation. We didn't touch the foundation. You know, we don't have to hold to the 1900s original pioneers definition. I'm sure they would have upgraded too. So if we just simply put in there the fact that, hey, we're going to probably have buildings that have rot. We expect that to be fixed. This isn't, oh, you can't fix it. This is, no, we expect it to be fixed, and we did fix that. And then please note, we did not change the building. When it's done, it'll have all the walls we said. It'll have the windows we said. Everything that's on that plan, we're still holding to. It'll still be in the same buildable envelope. We simply, I hope that's obvious when you look at that. We were horrified when we found the damage we had. There was no indicators that told us that we were walking into that. Okay, and so we feel that we were being very diligent, very careful. Quite honestly, we were thankful to do a good job. And we'd like to continue doing that good job. So as you write this ordinance, please understand, we're caught in the middle here. At no point did someone tell us, you've got to stop now.
But I mean, did you ask anybody?
What would have told us to ask?
Well, let me just, I think what raised my eyebrow on this was, in reading it, is that working with town staff, you actually had a site plan that everybody had agreed on that identifies walls that would remain and those that would disappear. And I think for me, and this is just moving forward, I think at the point where you realize nothing is salvageable and we're going to have to remove it all, for me, I would have been giving Tom a call. Just giving you an update, here's where we're at.
Were city officials on site, like someone took those pictures?
Yeah, those are the contractor's pictures.
The contractor's pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
At any time did you guys go on site and see where it was at?
yeah, so because there's not an active building permit issued, we don't make routine, regular inspections. Our building inspector did happen to be on site when the last bit of the garage was being pulled down, and that's when we became aware that the entire building was removed.
Thank you. So to your point, when they changed from the original drawings on the demo, the process they followed was to call me. And why? Because they needed to make sure the structure was intact. There was nothing in the provisions that said, hey, we have to stop, go get the city, go get permission, go clear this up. There was nothing to guide us down that path. Because I can tell you, the very fact that they called me and I was on site, I know they weren't trying to skip steps. They weren't trying to miss something here. They were trying to be very thorough. So our process was bringing the professional engineer on board, making sure we still had our structure, making sure things were updated correctly. There was nothing that told us to go to the city and say, hey, we have something beyond what we had. And we were following the ordinance that existed at that time, to our understanding. And please note, if you update it, we will gladly make sure you have whatever reports you need. That's not a problem. But at this point, there is a frame floor crawl space that's still intact. There is, by the way, to Pioneer standards, that's actually a living space down there in the basement. I grew up with Pioneer families. And so we did not change that, nor do we have any intent to change the actual building envelope. I believe we have not demoed the building completely. We have no intention of changing our approved final product. And in our minds, we addressed the problem as efficiently as we could, given the scope of work we were doing. And I would like your consideration on that, because we, quite honestly, would like to finish doing our job.
Questions?
Thank you.
I
Thanks,
do
sir.
have a question. Was somebody living in the house before the renovation started?
Yes, they were. My initial measurements on the house were with the owners in the home.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Thank you. You know, Kyla, you said something a while ago that I think, this is not a question for you, this is just deliberation, but if this house had burnt or been flooded, we would allow them to tear it down and build on the same footprint.
Yes.
And rot should probably fall under that same, it doesn't. That's a problem. The ordinance doesn't say that, but it should.
I agree. Absolutely.
So I think this is such a gray area, and, you know, we need to come to some
Well,
consensus about
And
it.
in my opinion, if we can agree that there's uncertainty, I think that's our answer. There is uncertainty we are where we are, so our interpretation would be that there is uncertainty about how much of the building can be removed without voiding your non-conforming or non-complying building. To me, that's all we have to decide, is that there is uncertainty.
But that's not our decision. Our decision is to interpret the ordinance.
That there's uncertainty, right?
Do we need to say it's,
And then apply a definition to cure the uncertainty.
okay, so if we make a decision that there is uncertainty, and that's, therefore this project is in compliance, it applies just to this project.
Meets the definition of ordinary maintenance, or falls within the definition of ordinary maintenance. Well, the definition is maintenance in our code. So, and then we further hash this out in our next item about where we want the gray, like where we want the gray to turn into.
I think maybe Randy hasn't said anything for a while, but I think we all agree it's a gray area, that this ordinance doesn't
Yeah.
define what total demolition is. If this were a flood or a fire, we wouldn't be having this conversation, it'd be a given. So, do you agree with that, Randy?
Yeah,
I
do.
We're all on board with that. So the question is, what do we do with this from here? We're all in agreement that this was a gray area, and there was a reason that this contractor thought it would be okay to go ahead and take the rot down and move forward with the existing foundation, right? We all agree on that.
Well, I think on several points, and I've written this up, the planning commission, do we direct them, request, whatever the motivation is, that they define removed. And
They define what?
They define what the word building removed means. Is it the superstructure, is it the foundation? We ask planning commission to, unless we decide right now that that's what it means.
Well, I mean, I think that's the next item.
It's the
Right.
next
When we
item.
get into that.
Right.
And I agree with all that we've talked about, what we've agreed on. The one thing that just really is disappointing to me is we had plans. They were going to tear this down. When they got in and found this, my thought is they should have come back to the town, to the staff, to the DDR, to the building inspector, and said, look, we can't follow this. We've got to take the whole thing down because of this. And then I would be fine with it. I'm really struggling with this, is that step wasn't taken. And I
But
think
should
it
have, we could, yes, should have, but because there was no demolition permit, they didn't have, it's such a, there wasn't the process for them to have to go back to the town. And
But
that's
they're
why I
changing
wondered-
what they said. They sent a plan in saying, we're
Yeah.
gonna take this wall down,
Yeah.
and this wall down. And the DDR said, yep, you can do that.
Yeah, and I said earlier.
And then they changed. Then
Yeah.
they went,
Yeah. And I said earlier that in essence, they had a demolition plan because they had shown what was staying and what was
Right,
going. And
right.
that's, yes, should have gone back to Tom, should have said, this is changing, what are the ramifications? But also didn't have any legal obligation to do that, I don't.
Yeah,
Well, Tom, is there nothing in writing that says, here's your set of approved plans, if you deviate from this, you need to notify the town?
Yeah, so for an approved design development review, you have to build what the approved design development review says. I think the question is, regardless of the process that was followed or the series of events that led to it or transpired to it, does taking those walls down and putting them back in the same place, that's essentially what the DDR approved, right? Whether it's the original rotten 2x4 or the new good fresh 2x4, the DDR approves that construction. The purpose of the DDR is to say, do you meet the setbacks and the height and the landscape and the lighting? The purpose of the DDR is not to regulate the fine details of construction, right? So in that regard, they're not deviating from the DDR. So I think the decision for you to make is, again, has the building been removed? And that I think you were going down a good path with that. I wouldn't be too concerned about deviation from the DDR plans because I think all along what they're intending to do complies with the approved DDR.
I think asking them to, or suggesting that they should have come back, when there's nothing that specifically requires it, it might be a good thought to include later on, or to include in the code as we build it here, but I don't think we can hold them to what they should have done.
Well,
Yeah, anybody who has built a house knows it will change. Something will change and go not the way you expect it.
Every time.
Every single time, right? Who do you go to? You go to the guys in the office and you say, listen, we're here. What do we do? For some reason that wasn't followed this time. But I think we gotta move, yeah, like, that's neither here nor there. Because that wasn't part of the building permit. This was part of the demolition, which is before the permit.
So maybe if I could just say, so we can keep moving on this thing, is that what we've been asked to do is determine when is a building removed. I would like us to provide that direction to the Planning Commission. If we can reach agreement that a building includes a foundation, if the superstructure and the foundation has been removed, the building has been removed, and ask the Planning Commission to develop language around that.
Defining removal.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the absence of that language now, we see the uncertainty in our ordinance.
Right. So, and I guess I would say, and I know we've got a couple of planning commissioners here tonight, but, you know, let's provide them the clear direction on what we have determined is removal.
Yeah.
And we may not all agree with that.
Could I just maybe interject something that may help guide your deliberations? So the ordinance, the 10-1-3, interpretation, construction, ambiguity, you know, the town has an application where if somebody, for whatever reason, feels like a particular ordinance is ambiguous and needs clarification, then they submit the application, which happened here. And in that application, the applicant proposes whatever interpretation the applicant thinks is appropriate. That's under Part A. And then under Part B, the town council may approve or deny the proposed interpretation. And so if you're not entirely comfortable, for the reasons you've discussed, in saying, you know, the interpretation that was posed is, does removal of all the walls then constitute removal of the building? And you want to have these sort of qualifying and mitigating considerations, you know, like if there's, in the process, if there's rot or other things, then probably the appropriate procedure is is not to approve the applicant's proposed definition or interpretation, but instead to deny that, but then as part of the next agenda item, direct the planning commission to prepare an ordinance that accomplishes all of the things that you've outlined, percentages and process and things of that nature to get to the determination.
Go ahead.
If I could back us up in time, and let's say we were just starting this project, and so basically I'm saying, what could we write in an ordinance that would be useful, or at least from my perspective? One is I really appreciate Mr. Dancy's comment about everything that was being checked hasn't changed. The lighting, the shape, the building, where the walls are going to end up when we're done has not changed. Okay? Please note, we were aware that, hey, we're touching the structure, and they got the structural engineer there right away. So the contractor knows that the process they knew, they kept involved. They weren't building a project without the engineer knowing what was happening. And then I really appreciate Mayor Bruno's comment about, hey, look, if we're allowing a flood and a fire, if there was a process where we could have come to the city and said, in the process of our project, we discovered this natural damage, mold and rot, you can define whatever process needs to be there. Had that been there, we would have come in with that submittal. This is what we found. This is what we want to replace. And we would have had our permission. Everyone would have been, okay, you're good. You're going to take it to this spot. And so I really appreciate that as a definition, Mayor Bruno, that this is a natural occurring thing that can be defined. And then just like we'd replace in a fire or a flood, we can replace this in the process of natural decay. And then with Mr. Dancy's comment that the intent of this building, when it's done, there's nothing different. If we'd left most of the walls or none of the walls, when we're done, it's going to be what was intended and what was approved.
Right.
Okay, so there was no deception, there was no confusion. We are following what was approved, what we had permission to do. There was just some ambiguity in how much we were supposed to take down, and honestly, that was determined by the mold we found. We would have liked to have not had to do it at all. Very, very sincerely. And if there was a process where I could have come in and said, we found mold, natural damage, may we replace it? It would have been done. So
Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts.
I just got an interesting text from a general contractor. Think about the difference between a foundation and building on slab. What constitutes a foundation? And that's an interesting question because this building has a crawl space, all the utilities. It's not just a concrete slab.
Exactly.
It's truly a foundation. So that's something we may want to think about as we move forward with an ordinance.
But I mean, a lot of homes
Or
are
does it
slabs,
matter?
or
Maybe
slabs
it
on
doesn't
grade
matter.
that
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
utilities.
I'm
And
not
even
sure it
even
matters.
if there is no crawl space, there's still piping
Yeah.
within the concrete.
But clearly, this is a foundation and not just a concrete slab, so.
Could I just say one sentence?
If you want to talk, do we want to hear what? This is
Sure,
not a
why
public
not?
hearing, it's a little out of order.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I think what is evident here is the motive and the purpose and the end result, and the reason why there was a question as to, it would have been nice if they had come in and those types of things, and it's a great point. I think that's all relative to clarity. There's not a motive to, the motive is a 3-year-old not dying in a windstorm due to rot. It isn't, we're going to make it bigger, smaller, or whatever. Nothing's changed that way. But anyway, my view is just, and I don't have a horse in this race, but clarity. Just having enough clarity. So there you go. Thank you.
Will you state your name?
Chris Johnson.
Okay, thanks, just for the record. Sorry, Barbara, I know that was.
So where do we go here? I think we all want to approve this project. I'm getting the feeling, I don't know about Randy. I think as a group, we're leaning toward approving this project, which means we set a precedent that we then correct in the next item. Is that a correct?
I guess I'm not looking at this as whether or not we're approving this project.
Right, but the interpretation
mean-
determines whether this project can move forward, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't that a different process? I mean, I think the direction we're going, this project will move forward.
I think we do
I think the majority of us are in agreement on what constitutes a building.
I agree. So we've got that off the plate.
Yeah.
Tom, did you have something to say? You know, started moving when Jack said that.
He wants to leave.
No, I wanted, this is fantastic. This is super interesting. I had nothing to say. Sorry for the apparent shoulder movement.
It's your tell.
Randy is cued into your body language.
I
You guys
am.
know that, yeah.
He's a building guy.
Can I say one thing? I
No,
promise it'll be fast.
no.
Since you're doing these weird things. You know, Kyla talked about spirit, intent. The intent, the whole reason you're here is talking about, is the nonconformity getting bigger? And it's not. The foundation is there, they're using the same foundation, they're not trying to expand the nonconformity. That's what is important here, in my view, is you're not talking about dismissing the original point of you know, we're taking the foundation, we're expanding, we're making, that's it. That's all you have to worry.
We know that, yeah. So the council should revolve the following uncertainties in the code. Under what circumstances has a non-complying building been removed from the property and therefore no longer eligible for non-complying building status? So has this building been removed from the property?
No.
Okay.
Not based on the definition
And I
of
think
ordinary.
Okay,
that would be.
so there's that question. The second question is, does the removal and subsequent replacement of all of the framing of a building in disrepair qualify as ordinary maintenance and repair?
No.
And it doesn't, but maybe if the building is rotten, it does.
Ordinary maintenance based on our definition, not like what you think of when you say ordinary maintenance, because I think the fact that we have named it ordinary maintenance and then defined it like we did is the
Well,
uncertainty.
Yeah, it says ordinary maintenance and repair means improvements made to a building for the purpose of keeping the structure in a state of repair and protecting the structure from failure or decline.
So I think that this
So,
could fall within
You know,
that
if we're
definition.
following, and the staff is very clear about we should be following, not what we think about normally as ordinary maintenance, but what does the code say, and that's what the code says.
That whole
And do we feel
safety.
like
But say.
what they've done falls,
From failure or
means
decline.
improvements
which
made
it
to a
is.
building for the purpose of keeping the structure in a state of repair and protecting the structure from failure or decline. That's what 10,
So once they got down to that point and
1021A
saw the rot, they
says.
were keeping it from a state of
Yeah.
failure or decline.
I mean,
Exactly.
So I think we can move forward on this. I think we've answered the two questions.
I agree.
Yeah, and our next discussion needs to be, ordinary maintenance is changing light bulbs, not.
Well, we need to, we need to definitely work on the codes.
Yes.
yeah.
But
Yes.
the matter at hand is a motion on
Yes.
this item.
I'm a little unclear where we're at with the second item, though.
You're not, well,
I'm not clear on that.
does the removal and subsequent replacement of all the framing of a building, that one,
Mm-hmm.
in disrepair qualify as ordinary maintenance repair? And Randy defined
And I read
ordinary
the
maintenance
And in
repair.
parentheses, section 1021.8, and I read what the definition of ordinary maintenance and repair means in section 1021.8.
And it does say keeping the building safe and
Yes.
from failure,
From decline.
decline and failure, which removing those walls did.
But, so removing the entire structure is still maintenance, ordinary maintenance.
You know, it gets down to what their engineer says, was the structure, removing all the structure, there's some ambiguity there because of what the application said. The application said there was 27 studs that were bad, that they noticed. And,
Well, I mean, I can agree with that. I think to the average layperson, though, we're talking about ordinary maintenance for the purpose of maintaining and protecting an existing structure. When it moves beyond the need to remove the structure in its entirety, we're talking about something else that we haven't defined. And I think that's what we're really challenged with, or ask the Planning Commission, is to define that next step that moves us beyond ordinary maintenance and complete replacement of a building's components.
We do need to ask the planning
I
commission that.
definitely agree.
And
I'm
does
just saying.
does that fall under demolition?
It probably does. I guess what I'm saying is, there's a difference between what we all consider ordinary maintenance and what the code definition is. And I read what the code said. And I think that this, according to what the code says, to make this protect the structure from failure or decline.
Yep.
Taking all these studs away probably does.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I guess, a question for Tom is, did the intent change? When we're beyond our ability to protect the structure in its entirety, and we're now talking about the need to remove it in its entirety, to me, those are two different things. That is not maintenance.
I think that's because our code needs work.
Yeah, so
I think,
so-
I
so-
agree. No, the code
Yeah.
needs work. It's, to me, it's a stretch.
What's that? What'd Paul say?
Yeah, we're,
Well,
number
I was
three.
hoping we could provide some guidance for four.
Well, we
Well,
can, we can talk
we
about
can,
it for as long
but
as we want.
I'm just saying
and
for three.
After we get this.
We
one.
need
what
to
we're-
wrap this
we're
one
told-
up.
What Barbara's saying is ordinary maintenance and repair as stated in section 1021.8, and that's what I just read.
How about we
So,
craft the
which-
motion here right there?
Yeah, I think we have a motion.
Okay.
I think
Harley.
we've kind of beaten this to
Go,
death.
Pat.
Well, let's beat it some more.
All right. Well, I'll do it so you can beat it up here. And this will take input, okay? I hope. Town council, and this is, are we in item C4 yet, Tom?
Three.
Three.
So when do we direct the planning commission to do something? C4?
Yeah.
C4, yeah.
Okay,
So we're just
don't
interpreting these
have 'em.
sections of the town code
okay.
right now.
Town council has reviewed the issues related to town codes 1021.3, non-compliant buildings and structures, and 1021.8, maintenance, repair, alterations, and improvements to non-compliant buildings or structures, and makes the following findings. Under 1021.3, there is ample ambiguity regarding the term removed as it relates to building or structure, such that it should be clearly and specifically redefined in code. And I was going to direct the planning commission, but I don't do that, right?
No.
Okay. The term remove should be clarified to consider whether this includes the entire structure, meaning the physical dismantling and disposing of all above and below ground portions, including the foundation, or some other combination thereof. So far, so good? Under 1021.8A, there is ample ambiguity regarding the term ordinary maintenance and repair, such that it should be specifically redefined in code. With the following questions. If a non-conforming building is allowed to deteriorate to an unsafe condition, can it simply be rebuilt under ordinary maintenance and repair provisions, or must it conform to current zoning? Am I in the wrong area
I
there?
don't think we need all this, do we, Tom?
So this sounds like you're preparing to
For number
give
4.
direction to the planning commission
Right,
on
and,
this.
and it was written for that, so
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
avoid
think
that,
on this
okay.
So we
item, what
don't-
you need to determine is, absent of what we want to do in the future,
Got it.
what does the code mean right now relative to the applicant's request? So basically, I mean,
It's done.
You're already there.
Yeah, you said it.
It sounds like what you're saying is, no, in this case, the building has not been completely removed because the foundation and the crawl space is there and the utilities there, therefore the building has not been removed, I think is the direction that you're going. Is that
Right.
correct?
That is.
Yes.
Can I have one provisional that I think will save a problem?
Well,
If you can make reference to Mayor Bruno's reference to,
Can you talk to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about good ordinances, because I need them, they help me. If you could add to that, I really like how Mayor Bruno put it. In light of the natural decline and the rot that occurred, which to me is under that flood and fire, that puts it in the right context. Because I agree with Mr. Burns, Councilmember Burns, that we don't want someone just tearing something down. The client didn't just go tear something down. It was coordinated. We just didn't have a clarity on what we needed to coordinate. And in the light of a natural breakdown, in other words, the rot that occurred, which I really like the context of, hey, flood or fire, or in this case, rot, there was repairs done to that, but the entire building was only taken down to the point that that repair was done, and now it's being restored to what it was. So to me, the idea of stating it in terms of, yes, there's a foundation, yes, there's a crawl space, yes, there's plumbing, the floor structure's still there, and then all other modifications were done in light of that natural damage being replaced.
But that's not in our ordinance now, so we can't really have that finding because it doesn't
I'm sort
allow
of
for
directing for
rot.
future, so I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
this is
So-
helpful for planning commission to revise that ordinance, but I think what we have before us here is a decision. Do you want to start that again? Read that first part?
okay, under 21.8?
You're making a motion, so
Right.
state
So
it as a
under
motion.
1021.8A, there is ample ambiguity regarding the term ordinary maintenance and repair, such that it should be specifically redefined in code. Is that sufficient?
No, because
No.
all you're saying is what we've already established at the beginning of the
Okay,
meeting. that
so
there's
how do we
ambiguity.
want the rest of that to read?
Kyla, did you prepare, could you?
I do, and we'll see. Okay, I'll try this. Let me get to the beginning. I was adding a few things. Okay. Regarding the request for an interpretation of sections 10-21-3 and 10-21-8 of the town code concerning repair, maintenance, and removal of a non-complying building, I move that we interpret the removal of the entire structure is within the definition of ordinary maintenance, which is found in the Springdale Town Code, because the foundation and other utilities remain. This motion is based on the discussion that was had at the September 10th meeting at the Town Council.
Could you add a finding that says that the building will be built on the existing foundation and will not increase the nonconformity?
You're absolutely right, that there is one condition, that no attribute of the building at all can add to the non-complying or non-conformity. It needs to be completely contained within the current foundation and cannot be expanded upon. To increase the
I
nonconformity.
think the back of the house will be bigger, right?
Yeah, to increase the nonconformity.
Just in the front, just the setbacks is what's at hand.
Sorry, I say conformity and I mean compliant.
Tom's twitching again.
I know.
Tom, tell us the language we should be using.
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
And the clarification that it's not confined to the footprint, because there will be
Yeah.
additions. And also, I like, Mayor, that you termed this as a finding rather than a condition, because this is not applicable just to this property, is this is a
Okay.
finding that could apply to all properties, right? So
Right.
what you're saying is that under these conditions and with these findings, this is how we're interpreting the ordinance.
Yeah.
So it's not really a condition applicable to a specific property.
Okay, then it is a finding.
Okay, are we good with what we have?
Sure.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Kyla, second by Pat.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Randy,
Jack, no.
Okay. Anybody need a break, or should we keep going?
Why don't you resolve number 4 and then take a break?
Okay. So next item is direction to the Planning Commission. Thank you for your input. Direction to the Planning Commission to revise Section 10-21 of the Town Code related to repair, maintenance, and removal of a non-compliant building, and the staff contact is Tom Dancy.
I think Pat already started a motion for this. and
Yeah,
I would
that's-
suggest you just go straight
Yeah.
and continue
Can
on
you
with
make
Pat's
that
motion.
Is that what you want me to do?
just good
We've got two
direction,
planning
Tom.
commissioners in the room, too.
You guys want to come up here and just read this and make it easier?
No, you're going to give input at the Planning Commission. So what we want to do, Pat, is we want to instruct the Planning Commission to revise Section 10-21 of the Town Code to clarify the terms in the code. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, Pat, the language that you started, Pat, is right along those lines.
Okay.
And so that would be a great.
I'll get the first part done, then we'll work on the second one. Okay, Town Council has reviewed the issues related to the Town Codes 1021-3, non-compliant buildings and structures, and 1021-8, maintenance, repair, alteration, and improvements to non-compliant buildings or structures, and makes the following findings. Under 1021-3, there's ample ambiguity regarding the term removal as it relates to a building or structure, such that it should be clearly and specifically redefined in code, and directs the Planning Commission to consider the following. Clarify the meaning of the word remove, to consider whether this includes the entire structure, meaning the physical dismantling and disposing of all above and below ground portions, including the foundation or some other combination. So far, so good? Does that work, Tom?
It does, and that's great, and that's providing the Planning Commission a lot of leeway in their interpretation, which is great, and because that's what the Planning Commission does, and they make recommendations to you. If you want to be more specific, you could say, we, as a town council, we're directing the Planning Commission that removal of a building means this. Or you could do it more open-ended, like how you've couched it, and allow the Planning Commission to bring you back.
Okay, we'll leave it open-ended?
No, I think personally, I think it means this.
Okay, then that's how we'll do it?
That's just my opinion, though.
What do you think it needs?
Well, we're talking about removal of the building is when the building structure and foundation has been removed.
And, and I think what I would hope the Planning Commission will address is, are we talking about removal of the whole structure, of the whole slab? What if they only remove half the slab?
Right. No, I agree.
And so I think we need to let them get into the details
Yeah,
of that.
I think we
So
need to leave it
Yeah,
open-ended.
I would leave it open-ended.
Yeah.
So that they can get into details and
So
really
open-ended,
nail
stays the way it is.
all that
Got it?
down, yeah.
So we're done, right, with the motion?
On
So
that
that was
piece.
1021-3, and I think you had some language about 1021-8 as well. Is
I
that-
do, that may be lumpy. Under 1021-8A, again, ample ambiguity regarding the term ordinary maintenance and repairs, such that it should be specifically redefined in code, and directs the Planning Commission to consider the following questions. If a non-conforming building is allowed to deteriorate to unsafe condition, can it simply be rebuilt under the ordinary maintenance and repair provisions, or must it conform to current zoning? Do we ask questions like that, Tom?
Sure.
Okay.
This is direction.
Do we also want Planning Commission to look at the ordinance that allows for a building that's been in a disaster to be?
That would be my next,
I think
I was
that's-
going to say, and to decide what if the deterioration is involuntary? Would that cover it, Mayor?
That's good.
Or, yeah, beyond natural disaster, like, yeah, I think they've heard our conversation, and if you make reference to it, then surely be able to take it under consideration.
And the last two, maybe, maybe not. If a building is demolished, does a remaining foundation hold claim to the original non-conforming building conditions, but we don't need that, I don't think.
Couldn't hurt to have.
Okay. And then I put the percentage thing in there. Do we want to even mess around with a percentage?
Like the planning commission would do
They
that.
can decide, yeah.
Okay.
But might I, if you're open to an addition, developing a demolition permit plan or permit?
Mhm.
Yes.
And the planning
Yeah,
commission
absolutely.
should consider a demolition permit process.
Yes.
So that's probably direction to staff,
Okay.
because that's just an administrative process that we would develop, and we can do that
All right.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
The town council herein directs the planning commission to consider these points and others they deem necessary and provide council with proposed revisions to these codes to make the interpretations explicit.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, second by Kyla.
Kyla, aye.
Aye.
Barbara?
Randy,
Jack, so if I could just say something really quick. So on item 3, for me, is a good example of, in my mind, that should have been 2 different motions, because I agree with the first interpretation of what we were asked to interpret, and I can't agree with the second on where we reach consensus. So I mean, am I a maybe? You know, it's like, so for me, I said no, but that's an example where I kind of felt like that was two different.
But they needed to know if they could go ahead with their project.
Oh, I know, but I just feel like I
Yeah.
could have voted yes on one and no on the other.
Then what would they do?
Well, and I
Okay.
think it's okay when you vote no to clarify,
Yeah.
like where
Yeah.
where your
Well,
misgivings
you-
were, so.
You said that before, that we're allowed to do that, right? Yeah.
We should, I'll tell you
Okay.
later. Okay, so do we want to keep going, or do we want to take a quick break?
We are having way too much fun, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in for the long haul.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Resolution 2025, I was going to say this one straightforward, but I never should say that. Resolution 2025-09, a resolution of the Springdale Town Council adopting the updated corridor management plan for the Zion Scenic Byway. Applicant is Emily Friedman on behalf of the Zion Regional Collaborative, and the staff contact is Tom Denzi.
Thanks, Mayor. I think the council is all pretty familiar with the Scenic Byway program and the corridor management plan update process. I think you've all seen a draft of the corridor management plan, and many of you came to the public workshop where that update was discussed, so I won't go into the details on the Scenic Byway program or the corridor management plan, but I can answer questions about that if you have them. I'll just explain what you're being asked to do tonight, is to adopt a resolution that expresses the town's commitment and intent to participate in the implementation of the corridor management plan. So this is, the corridor management plan is a non-binding, non-regulatory document, so this does not obligate the town to do anything, but it does say, yes, we support this, we like the direction that it's going, and we're going to participate in its implementation. The reason why the council is being asked, one of the reasons why the council is being asked to adopt a resolution is that the Zion Regional Collaborative will be taking or asking the state legislature to also adopt a resolution of support for the corridor management plan. That is a prerequisite to application for National Scenic Byway designation. So your resolution tonight, combined with the resolutions of the other communities along the byway, will then be forwarded to the state legislature as support, if you choose to adopt it tonight, as support for the state adopting a joint Senate House resolution of support for the corridor management plan.
you know, I just want to say, I think this plan is great. It is, the verbiage is really good. I think it's what we need to do. I have one little critique though on page 1.4, there's a photograph of these two, for lack of a better word, yahoos, who are pointing to a map, and neither one of them is pointing to SR9.
Which page is this?
So if we could,
24?
this one right here.
It's you and Kelly.
Which page is that? Because I want to frame
Neither
that.
one of you are
You gotta
pointing
put
to
it on your fridge.
SR9 here. Here's
You're
this
famous,
big
Pat.
line that says 9 on it.
Got it.
But Other than that, I think.
Other than the
plan-
Yahoos?
Yeah, other
Okay.
than that particular photograph, I think.
So we approve it conditionally by removing that photograph, is that what you're saying?
Well, or replace it with something, or maybe
It's a final document.
photo op your.
Somebody make a
your
motion to
arms a
approve
little
the
bit longer
resolution.
Before I make the motion, I will just say, I think this is a great plan. I appreciate it. I think this
Yeah.
is going to give us lots of guidance in the future about decisions that we need to make potentially, and, you know, even bringing in the kind of tourist and the messaging and all of it. I think it's a very well-done plan. So I appreciate all the time and effort that was put into it.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work, a lot of community meetings. and
Yes.
I
Really
think
good-
I think it's a good result.
Contractor, though.
Really good, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and she wanted to be here, but she couldn't, so. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Sure. I move to approve Resolution 2025-09, a resolution of the Springdale Town Council adopting the updated corridor management plan for the Zion Scenic Byway, as discussed in the September 10th Town Council meeting. Do I need to direct the mayor to sign?
Yes.
And direct the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Kyla, second by Randy.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Randy, yeah.
Jack, aye.
Okay. Next item is discussion and possible approval of a letter of site control authorizing Switchpoint Community Resource Center to begin taking steps to develop parcel S-100-C at the end of Trapper Circle with multifamily residential housing. And it's Tom Danzy, and we should say workforce housing, shouldn't we? Or is that
Correct.
something you're going to talk about?
That's a good clarification. It would be
Okay.
workforce housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of,
Well, it just
okay.
says multifamily residential housing, but the intent is that that multifamily residential housing would be occupied by households who are workforce housing.
And is it moderate income?
It could be.
It could be. So
They could apply for that, but right now it's just multifamily workforce housing.
Correct. And just some background on this. Several years ago, the town issued an RFP to engage a partner to help us develop that property along with the Red Hawk properties that the town had acquired as workforce housing. The town selected Mountain Country Home Solutions to be our housing partner. And as was commented earlier in the meeting, the town went through an extensive process with Mountain Country Home Solutions regarding the Red Hawk properties. And that has been the focus of Mountain Country Home Solutions. And they're going through that process and working hard on that project. Because that project has turned out to be, due to unforeseen circumstances, a little bit more difficult than originally anticipated, it's taken longer to get that project up and running, which in turn has delayed their focus, Mountain Country Home Solutions' focus on the Trapper Circle lot. That Trapper Circle lot was never has not been part of any of our previous or currently existing agreements with Mountain Country Home Solutions, other than when we selected them as our partner, we said, yes, this is a property that we'll be working with you on. But we have no formal agreement or legally binding agreement with them on that property. Because of the length of time that it was taking to get that project underway, we started looking around to see if there were other partners that we could engage to help with that project, and made a contact with Switchpoint Community Resources. They develop housing. You probably are most familiar with them because of the homeless services they provide in St. George and some of the services they provide in St. George. And they also are a housing provider and develop workforce housing. The mayor and I met with representatives from Switchpoint last Thursday, and they expressed enthusiasm to get started to partner with us on this Trapper Circle lot. We had a subsequent phone call with Mountain Country Home Solutions, and Mountain Country Home Solutions expressed their support for Switchpoint taking the lead on this project. So what this action item tonight is a couple of things. One is to make the council aware of this kind of change in direction, because it's different than what we have been discussing and what the council has discussed previously. And the other is to give staff direction. Now, in the staff report, it talks about a funding opportunity that SwitchPoint is interested in pursuing, which has a deadline of October 1st. And as indicated in the staff report, and as was made in Robin's comments earlier, that's a really tight timeline to go through and get all the everything in place to meet that funding deadline. So the direction that we would appreciate from you tonight is, first of all, how does the council feel about engaging SwitchPoint as a partner in lieu of Mountain Country Home Solutions? And second, kind of give us your direction on how you want us to proceed. I will note that since Thursday, I've had conversations with the project manager for this project with SwitchPoint, and he said, look, we understand that you have a process to go through. We don't want to push you faster than you want to go. Don't worry about this October 1st deadline too much. If it happens, great, but we'll figure out the funding however it needs to work. So while there is that funding opportunity that may expire, that will expire on October 1st and may not be coming back in the future, SwitchPoint is going to be a partner with us and wants to be a partner with us regardless. And if it takes us longer to get these agreements and everything that we need in place, that's fine as well. So that's not really a hard and fast deadline.
Can I add a few things to that?
Yeah, you bet.
So the short deadline, I got in touch with Carol Hollowell, the director of SwitchPoint, at the recommendation. I had been contacting several companies that do workforce housing and multifamily housing, affordable housing and stuff, and nobody was interested in a project of this size. And one of my contacts said I should check with SwitchPoint. So I called Carol last week, and they were up here within a few days. So this isn't their deadline. I mean, this isn't them coming to us saying, you got to do this now. We called them, they came up, and she mentioned that there's a lot of funding available this year for these kinds of projects. The deadline for that funding is October 1st, and she does not believe the funding will be available next year. So it's in our favor if we can make that deadline. Nothing will happen. It's just that then they could submit for these grants. If they don't get the grants, then nothing happens anyway. But the deadline is not imposed by them. They're not trying to push us into a corner. We can do what we want with that, but that's where that came from. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
So if we approve this letter and they go for the funding, they're making the request in a sense on our behalf. We're kind of locked into these guys if we have them do this letter.
So in a way, yes, in a way, no, right? So if we give them this letter saying, hey, we want you to go make this funding, and they get the funding, at that point, it would be awkward for us to pull out and say, oh, no, just kidding. But
I could do that. if you're uncomfortable with it, I'd be happy to do that.
I spoke, like I said, I spoke to the I forgot Jeff's title, what he is at SwitchPoint. It's not project manager.
He's on the board, isn't he?
He's not on the board.
Oh.
He's not the executive director, but he's like, Carol's the executive director.
Yes, she is.
Anyway, Jeff, really nice guy.
Got it.
Now I've forgotten my whole train of thought where I was going with this.
You're saying that he said that normally they do a real estate purchase contract?
Yes, thank you. So normally they do a real estate purchase contract, which is, super binding, that says, yeah, we are going to sell you this property and contingent on you getting the funding. In this case, because there is no sale, we're proposing just to transfer the property. A real estate purchase contract would not be appropriate or applicable. So he was trying to kind of figure out what exactly he would want in that letter of site control. But based on my conversations with Jeff, it would be something that is fairly binding, right? So it would be something that they would have certainty going forward that if they got the funding, if they got the money, they could do a project on the property.
Because I know when we looked at Mountain Country, there was a lot of discussion in the Housing Committee about that company. And we introduced to the woman in charge and backgrounds, and there's a lot of time to consider all this. And it does seem to be a little compressed timeline-wise.
Correct.
I didn't find anybody else who's willing to do a project like this, but,
Right.
I mean, if they don't get okay, so what we're doing with this site control letter is we'd be committing the site to them, right? And they'd go try to get grants. If they don't get grants, it's a moot issue anyway. If they do get grants, then we work with them, and then we start putting agreements in place and parameters and.
Yeah, and so you probably could not, and tonight, your action tonight is not necessarily to approve a site control letter. I don't think you could do that tonight, because there's a process in our code that we have to follow for disposal of real property. And in order for us to say, yeah, Switch Point, we're gonna give you this property, we wouldn't be able to do that without going through that process. So your discussion tonight is, do we want to start taking steps to do that? And if so, how fast do we want to move? Do we want to try to take these steps?
So there'll be an
By
actual,
October 1st, or do we want to say, no, we want to move in that direction, but we're going to do it a little bit more deliberately and not worry about the October 1st deadline?
And I think that depends on how complicated the process is. I mean, we talked about the ability to have a special meeting if we had to further talk about this and get things done, but you've got some other behind-the-scenes stuff to do. I guess we should have a conversation about whether we're comfortable with them. We might want to get them in front of us.
I'm wondering, are they going to be moving forward on their end? Are they, like, if we say go ahead tonight, are they starting to write their grants so they will be ready for that October 1st deadline while we're also moving towards fulfilling our policies and procedures?
I believe they'll go as fast as we want to go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in addition to talking to the Switch Point representatives, all these conversations, we're at a conference that I just happened to be at this week. It's a housing conference, and the architects who are working with Switch Point were at that project, or at that conference, and they said, hey, Switch Point has already talked to us about getting some concept sketches together to work on this. So I think Switch Point is ready to move as fast as we want them to move, and also they will go as slow as we're comfortable with going.
so Tom, is there to coin an aviation term, is there a point of safe return where we can say, yes, go ahead with this, but we can further examine it and pull away from it before there's any commitment?
Yeah.
Do we have a chance to just look at this thing?
Yes, yeah, so you're definitely at that point right now.
Okay.
And you can be in that safety zone as long as you are comfortable. So that's part of the council's deliberation tonight is how long do we want to be in that safety zone before we cross the point of no return.
Got it.
So the beauty of this, in my opinion, I know Switch Point, the beauty of this is that the property is zoned central commercial. They don't need to apply for a workforce housing overlay zone to get density. They can go with the density for the central commercial zone. We talked to them about building a building that's similar to what's there, that doesn't look any different, that just fits into the community. And when I told Carol that under a workforce housing overlay zone, we require that 75% of the units be occupied by people with at least in the workforce here, she said, why not 100%? She's really, this organization they've built workforce housing in Moab, they've built it in St. George. They're really big on workforce housing. They know how to get it done. They know how to get it funded. So it's exactly the kind of thing we've been looking for. Yeah, I don't know
I'll just share
where
a
we want to
couple
go
things
from
where
here.
I'm not comfortable. And I'm kind of disappointed in Mountain Homes. I think that we had a super high level of confidence in them and that we have gone out to our residents. I mean, we kind of sold the whole idea based on what we heard from them on what they could do for Springdale. And I find it disappointing that there have been roadblocks or whatever they're dealing with that we as a council haven't been kept better apprised of what the delays are and that, you know, here we are where they're not going to be able to produce and we're actually looking for somebody else. I think where I'm uncomfortable with Switch Point is They may well be into the workforce housing business, but the very first thing I did was went and looked at their website that mentions absolutely nothing about workforce housing. It's all homeless shelters. And so, you know, for me, that makes me nervous in that we're trying to sign on with something and again, sell it to our residents that we haven't had the time to have them in front of us so that we can ask them questions. And I just kind of feel like we just need to slow it down.
But that's what we're here to talk about, is whether we want to get them in front of us
Yeah,
and
we
learn
do.
more, and how quickly do we want to move this forward? Do we want to have a special meeting with them in front of us to talk about this and try to make the October 1st deadline, or do we want to do we want to just take longer and potentially lose those grants? And I'm okay with either way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like being backed into a corner to sign short deadlines when the commitment is huge, you know. And so, at least it was with Mountain Homes. And so anyway, I would just like us to think about the idea of maybe slowing down a little bit with it, and let's kind of let it run its course and not let the money drive the project. Again, I get really concerned. I mean, I want to know that what's their process they use for placement of occupants of these housing units. And if they're in the homeless shelter business, are they actually recruiting people to get them jobs in Springdale, to give them a home here in Springdale? Those are the kinds of questions that I would like better assurance of. And I don't want to paint a negative light on homeless people. Everybody needs a place to lay their head. But I think we also know that what comes along often with homeless people are issues related to drug addiction, and mental health issues, and law enforcement issues. Larger communities are suited better to absorb that. They have the resources. I want to make sure that we're not introducing that into our community. And if we are, let's be fully transparent on that.
Well, we'll decide the parameters with them, and it's not going to be moving people up here to live there. But yeah, we can, I mean, do we want to pursue this? Do we want to get them in front of us? Do we want to pursue
Yes,
this
definitely.
project?
And I think Tom's stated it pretty well. We've got kind of two choices here in terms of a timeline. Do we want to try to have a special meeting and push this quickly and get us in front of us so we could make this potential October 1st grant deadline? Or do we want to just do it in the course of our regular agendas?
Yeah,
And,
that's really,
you know, and I don't know how much money we're talking about here, Tom, that we might be, I would be curious how much money we talking about with this grant that we might be able to get for this particular project. Do you have any idea of that?
I don't know the amount, and
Or maybe percentage of what this whole project would cost? Would it be 50% of what it would cost, or 25%, or?
yeah, so any developer of housing, in particular nonprofit developer of affordable housing, has to put together a complex stack of capital, right? And so I don't know which of those components of this capital stack are expiring on October 1st and how large they are. Again, in speaking with Jeff, he's said, yes, that's a great opportunity. We would love to take advantage of it. But if it goes away, we're confident that we can find another capital stack to make the project work.
Yeah. In my mind, that kind of.
and it wouldn't be our grant. We don't want to own these.
No, we don't.
Yeah, it would be
We
their
definitely
grant,
don't.
but
No,
yeah,
I'm-
they would own and manage them.
I would like, if these people have Mountain Country Homes, okay, or if approval, they think Mountain Country Homes approves of them, at least let's get them and talk to them.
I agree.
And, you know, and we don't need to do it in a special session. Fine with that. If they feel like they can find other grant opportunities out there that might cover what they could get, so.
Kyla?
That's the letter I
You're
would like
quiet.
to see.
Well, I'm excited for this opportunity, and I'm kind of the person who would take a leap of faith and say, let's pursue this. And as Pat said, like, you know, towards the point of no return without crossing. And if that, I'm open for a special session to get them in front of us before October 1st. I think if they look at an October 1st deadline and they're not freaking out and going, we're not ready, we got to do all these things. If they're kind of saying, well, really what we need is on your end, to me that means they are spooled up, they've done this before, and maybe they would be able to come in and give us a presentation and really help us understand the process. Conversely, they might come in front of us and show us the process, and we would go, you know, we're actually need to slow down and take this slower. I think if we had a special meeting before October 1st, then we have kind of a fork in the road, and we can either continue to go quickly and get that October 1st deadline, or we can choose to slow down. And if I'm seeing that incorrectly, then I'm happy to hear it, that I'm wrong. But I think that, to Jack's point, when Mountain Country Homes came in, we were very excited, and we saw them on our agenda, and we kept having to revise because deadlines were being missed. And I know there was a lot of disappointment there on my end and on the community's end. So to just, I think to not vet out this option completely would be a real mistake. I think we have a chance to diversify, so let's take it. It is kind of disappointing that there isn't more information on their website about their workforce housing, but maybe it's just a lack of, it's outside of what people Google them for. It's not what they're known for, really. A smaller subset of people who are able or interested in having workforce housing. But the fact that they've worked with Moab, to me, that's very telling. And I think we might have enough connections with Moab to say, you know, how was that experience for you? Would you do it again?
Well, I think it sounds like the next step for us is to get them in front of us, ask our questions, learn more about them, learn more about their workforce housing, how this would work. And the question then is, Tom, would you like us to do this in September in a special meeting, or do you have a strong opinion either way?
I don't have strong feelings either way. That's entirely up to the council, how quickly you want to move, how comfortable you are.
I personally would like to have a special session and get them up here and at least have the option of making that October 1st deadline. Doesn't mean we're going to go ahead, but I'd like to have that option. Because if we can get them the site memo before then and they can apply for this funding in this cycle, that would be great. If we talk to them and we decide we don't have enough information or we're not ready to make that kind of commitment, we can do that, but we can't undo not talking to them.
Yeah, and the only, I like that, I hear that. The one thing that Tom said that makes me just a little uncomfortable with that is if we get them up here and say, yeah, go ahead and get this funding, and they get the funding, what if we vet them and say, man, you know, you guys, I don't think we can really handle this. And, you know, to boot them out after they got us the funding, that's...
Well,
Or we'd be vetting them out before they...
But wouldn't we talk to them first and make a decision later?
Our meeting would be to vet them out.
And I think, you know, we would meet with them and see what they're about. I think in the meantime, some of us could be talking with Moab and learning about their experience with this company. And Barbara, did you mention someone else? Moab?
Yeah, they did some in St. George. They've
Right, and get a few of them up in front of us, and then at that point, like, say, that's when we have the fork in the road. We're either gonna say we need more time because the presentation or whatever information we've gathered between now and the time of our special meeting has not been convincing. And so we say, you know what, we're gonna take this as slow as we want to, and sorry, we're missing out on the funding. Or we say, you know, we've seen a really compelling story, a really compelling picture. They look like they're spooled up to go. We can be ready to go, and we make, you know, a decision differently at that point. Like, I really see if we have a special meeting as it kind of being Pat's term of
And
safe
I'm
return.
good with the special meeting.
I am too.
I just want to make the point too, though, that it's not only us that needs to be comfortable with it, it's our residents as well, our community. So they need to have the opportunity to learn more about them. So I think a special session would be good.
Good?
Well, I think, yeah, we have a special session, which obviously will be an open meeting, and decide what to do from there. But we need to first decide we want to work with them before we take the next steps. And I think that's when we vet them out.
Yeah, I'm
So
good
do
with that.
should we go ahead and make direction to start preparing all of the like fulfilling the processes that are necessary so that they are ready by October 1st, if we make that decision? If we make the decision, then the work we did was null and void? Or are we not gonna ask staff to make any movements until we've had our special meeting?
Well, I mean, it's the 10th today, so we don't have a whole lot of September left.
3 weeks till October 1st, right?
Maybe Tom, unless you already know the answer, maybe you talk to, sorry, what's his name?
Jeff.
Jet.
That guy.
Sherlane's
The
husband.
guy, yeah,
Again,
Switchpoint guy.
the switchboard guy.
find out if they, you know, if they're available to come up and what would need to be done by October 1st. Because maybe it's a moot issue. If he says that, you know, if we miss that deadline, maybe we just bring him to the next regular meeting.
Yeah, I can do that. But if he says, yeah, I can come to a special meeting, and yes, we can make the September, or the October 1st deadline, then would the council like to do a special meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you need a motion, Tom?
It's just direction to staff.
Council direction, right?
Tom, yeah, as chair of planning, please.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I'm excited about moving forward with Trapper Circle, but like they say, the devil's in the details. And I think we need to be careful with what kind of financing they're able to acquire on short notice. And there may be restrictions that may not fulfill the vision that we have for Trapper in terms of workforce. You know, I think the way we've thought of it in the past is to have people who've worked here for some time that maybe volunteer in the park or elsewhere, and they get bonus points in terms of criteria for selection. Switchpoint may have an entirely different mindset about that. They may be acquiring financing that is targeted for very low-income people, or even for homeless. There might be programs in that regard. And so the devil's in the details. You know, I think we want to provide housing for our current workforce and not necessarily housing for someone who comes up day one from St. George and has a job here and gets an apartment.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Yes.
all good points to bring up with them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and so we can, when we get them in front of us, these are all questions we'll want to ask.
Yeah.
We want to clarify all of that and know a lot more than we do now. But we've made a decision, we want to learn more. And that's the only decision we're making right now, is that we want to learn more. If they're available in September, we'll have a special meeting and meet with them.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is legislative ordinance 2025-16 and ordinance amending ordinance 2025-07 prohibiting open fires and the discharge of fireworks in the town of Springdale during the 2025 fire season. And this is Rick.
Yeah, and the fire chief who's gone. I put together a pretty simple amendment to your 2025-07 ordinance, just extending it out to October 15th or whatever date the council is interested. You know, I think, Randy, you were going to talk about fire hazards with the fire board, and I don't know if you had any information to share.
He didn't have a specific, what he basically said to me is that we are still in a very challenging environment in terms of fires. And, you know, there was no stage 1, stage 2, whatever designation that he would put on it, but he felt like we were still in a very tenuous situation.
Right. We asked
fire protection.
Jeff's gone. We asked Jeff the other day when we were meeting with him. You know, the park just recently changed from their stage 2 back to their normal, which is fairly regulated anyway.
Yeah.
And it was because of monsoon rains, and they felt like there was moisture. And then he followed that up with, but then it's gotten dry again. So, Color Country, I believe the Color Country Fire Agency is reducing, you know, in the county, you know, the same sort of thing, reducing from a higher level of restriction down. I think it's really up to the council if you want to extend that ordinance or not. The Wildland Urban Interface Zone code that he was mentioning with House Bill 48, if we have to adopt that, or when we have to adopt that, that may drive some of these decisions even further.
And his point to me, and I think he made it tonight too, is when the state issued their fire map, it's very vague, it's very pixelated when it comes to small communities like Springdale. And so he's really pushing to get a fire code or a fire map for Springdale that's much more specific, and we'll kind of look at everything in Springdale.
You know, with this ordinance, we define everything. It's the whole city. Because, you know, when you look at particularly the state code, you know, requirements for fireworks, you know, with so many feet of dry wash, so many feet of you know, shrub cover hills, and you know, those kinds of, I mean, he's right. There's very few places in Springdale, if any, that are not under those limitations, you know, or those under those criteria. But you can extend it. You can extend it to October 15th. You can extend it any further date. You know, the way I tried to write the ordinance was this date or some other date as determined by the council. So if you say, we're going to run to the end of the year, for instance, you could do that. We'll just change the date before we submit it to the codifiers.
Okay, I have one question. You, in 493, which is open fires, you changed the date from September 15th to October 15th. But in 492, fireworks prohibited, you didn't change the date.
Did I miss one?
Yeah, there was one that was, I noticed that too.
Oh,
492 fireworks.
And I think that should be changed.
That should be changed too. That should be, whatever date you approve, we ought to.
Right,
Yeah, there are
it should
3
be the same
places.
for
Yeah,
fireworks.
and I think it should be the end of the year. It's so dry.
Well, frankly, if it was up to me, we wouldn't be doing this at all.
Just
No fireworks.
Yeah.
And what I would do,
I'm with the man.
Yeah.
well, and what I would do is instead of making it a date, we make it environmentally conditional. For instance, we could say that fireworks are prohibited in this month if the rainfall from the prior month was less than 2 inches or 3 inches. And we'd have the fire chief decide, well, in August it only rained 2 inches, no fireworks in September. Rather than pushing the date out and out and out, we make it conditional upon what the weather was from the prior month, or some version thereof.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good point, but like the park reacted to the monsoons, which were just a few days, and they dropped it down. But now the chief said that the conditions are back up to being
Exactly, but the
before.
fact of the matter is the park doesn't pay my fire insurance, right? And that's the issue I look at.
Yeah.
If we say we're going to let some knucklehead from San Diego shoot fireworks and
Fireworks
place,
So fireworks are a very limited time window. I mean, the state already controls them to be only certain time periods.
Right. But
But
they're
you've
not.
also got open fires and sparks and grinding and those sort of activities.
And we
Right.
can't prohibit those all the time. I mean, like Jack talked about, if
Why
you,
not?
you have certain times when maybe you should be allowed to burn, if you have a lot of land and you
I'm not concerned
have the
about burning, I'm
brush.
talking about fireworks.
Firework, yeah, fireworks, I agree.
Well, I
They're
think we
over-
could ban fireworks permanently in Springdale
That's
if
fine
we
with me,
wanted
just
to.
can't
But
do
I
it.
think the fires, you know, like people staying in the campground, if it's part of a camping experience,
I have no problem with
Well,
those
but
kinds of
this-
fires,
this
but
does not-
fireworks is
This
just,
doesn't even touch fire in approved fire pits, like you
well,
are
it says
allowed
the
to
person may not
those.
have any fire in the campfire in the campground until after, so it does. But
No,
it's,
I thought I said,
No,
I
this-
thought it reads that as long as it's in an approved fire
Right,
pit,
this,
it's
this
allowed.
allows
It's
for
allowed.
campgrounds.
Yeah.
so the penalties is just separate item, I guess, okay. And we've got some mandates coming down from the state, we've got some new maps coming and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do we extend it till the end of the year for now and see where all of
So-
that goes?
You're gonna have fireworks. The fireworks window is 3 days before and after the holiday, which is New Year's Eve. So you may want to extend.
So we don't want them here, so,
You don't want to extend it December 31st, for example, because that's something that goes
Yeah.
along December 1st, January 1st, and says, I'm gonna light these off, and they'd be totally within their ability.
So it needs to go through January 3rd?
well, couldn't we ban fireworks permanently,
I'm not
but,
convinced you can. yet.
okay.
I think that would need to be, in my opinion, we would need to say to the community, we're gonna discuss
I don't think the
Banning.
state allows us to do that,
why not?
banning them
because I don't think
permanently.
they allow us to do that, based
love
on my
fireworks.
understanding of the state fireworks.
So
code.
couldn't we set, we could play the same game the state plays. We could set conditions that we know will never be met.
But the way the state defines that is, given year-by-year data, it means you have to evaluate it somehow year-by-year data, or the preceding several years. Now, that WUI code, that might be something that you could just ban them all the time, if we get there, which I think we probably will, but remains to be seen.
Well, I'm not inclined to extend this just for a month and then have to do it again in a month. So,
So why don't you ban them through January 15th, and then let's see what happens after that.
Through January or December 15th?
January 2026.
so that we miss the next
So that way it
fireworks.
covers through the next fireworks window, which is New Year's Eve.
Which starts when?
3 days
Just before New Year's
Eve
and
and
just
3 days
after. I'm good with January 15th.
I like February
So
15th.
that means no, and maybe this was something I was a little unclear when Chief Decker was talking. He said, if there's a ban, then his department can still facilitate a burn, a
Yeah.
permitted burn? Or if-
Something like it.
Yeah.
if there's a ban.
If
he-
if they're available.
Then his department can facilitate that, but we have to sign waivers and things like that. So our residents would still have the ability to take care of their property during the slower fire season.
Yes.
That's all. I don't want to put people in a bind to do what they need to do in the prime season, like,
Well, I mean,
Whatever
just,
that-
and
whatever
if I
that
could
is.
just ask to be clear, is, let's just say, if it syncs with Washington County burn permit area, I mean, if you want to have an open fire in Springdale, you still need a burn permit. So, I mean, why not have it sync with Washington County? Because again, they're issuing permits based on the burning index. So, you know, it may be open in September, but that doesn't mean you're gonna burn in September. You know, it's
Well, that's
really
fires, yeah.
open fires.
Yeah, and then there are fireworks is a
Yeah, I
separate
thought we
issue.
moved on from fireworks.
I thought we moved on to fire too. I thought we were
Okay.
just saying everything till January 15th.
We were going to put them in the same category, but do we want to do
I don't
them
think we should do
differently?
that.
So do we say fireworks until, if Rick thinks we can't do it permanently, how about if we say no fireworks till at least January 15th?
15th,
I'm good with that.
2026.
And then for fires, we say, what?
September 15th.
Not September, no.
Well, again,
Too
you've
dry.
only got 2 months. you know, if you got a big old pile of brush that needs to be burned on your property. And again, that doesn't mean you've got a full 2 months. You've got whenever the window is open.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't have a yard to burn things, I don't know all the implications, but.
I got a big old pile of brush up at Anasazi.
Put it in your truck. and-
Yeah.
Your neighbors will be
just
so
kidding.
upset to
I'm not
see you
gonna,
burn.
I'm not gonna burn it, but if you have a big pasture, it's not realistic. I don't think it's realistic to say, yeah, load it up and haul it off to the landfill.
Well, let's at least go to October 15th so that, you know, it's so hot and dry and it's windy all the time right now. This is a really bad time to burn.
Yeah, and the chief felt like it was a really bad time to burn, so
Yeah.
at a minimum, I think we need to go to October 15th on the open fires. And I think I like the idea of fireworks, January 15th, 2026.
Everybody get on board with that?
I think
For
so.
now.
I will have to like add that what kind of Rick touched on. And I asked a park representative about this last year in an open meeting. We get the daily report that says, you know, fire is high or moderate. And then we were getting those that said that, you know, fire risk on the plateau was high. But they've got, a date triggers the fact that there are no more fire restrictions. And so I don't want to be like that. I appreciate that this is back on our agenda, that we're looking at the situation as it is dynamic and environmental, and that we're responding to the actual things that are happening, not just like, oh, well, the date triggered, and so we're just gonna pretend like there's no more fire risk. So I'm just gonna say, I appreciate this conversation, and there's no reason to have fireworks.
Yeah,
in this-
and I mean,
in
this
condition.
is an ordinance for 2025. So, and Pat, I'm with you for fireworks. I would like to never see them, but
I
I
realize,
can't believe we
like
still
Rick
allow
says, we're gonna run
fireworks.
into.
I realize
in
there's
the
a
state.
lobby that pushes this, but it
Yeah.
just annoys me.
Yeah,
I
okay.
get you're annoyed, but the state is very favorable to fireworks.
Yeah.
The
My
state
dog thinks
legislature
they're very annoying
is-
too.
So that's the reality of that,
Yeah, I understand.
what we gotta deal with, so.
Okay, so,
And I think maybe this is something, you know, we were just meeting with Joe Edelson the other day and said, look, if there's things that you're worried about, let us know.
Mhm.
Maybe that's something that we push on and say, you're a representative, why don't you do something for us?
Mhm.
And yeah, considering our unique circumstances, there's just no need for it here.
Right. If there's no place where the law provides safety, then we should be able to say, we're never going to allow them. We're assuming that environmental conditions are not gonna change so favorably that it's gonna change our minds, so.
Rick, do you want to look into whether we can ban them permanently?
Yeah, I will, and I'll talk to Representative Edelson also.
Okay, so for tonight, let's get a motion that says we're banning fireworks until
So
January.
The date in 492 is June 1 through January 15th, 2026.
Yes.
And the date
And
in
for
493
9/3 is
October
October
15th.
15th,
October
2025.
15th.
And the date in 495 is October 15th.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. I apologize for missing that one.
it's okay. So we have a motion?
Sure. I move we approve ordinance 2025-16, ordinance amending ordinance 2025-07, prohibiting open fires and discharge of fireworks in the town of Springdale with the following revisions. In section 492, the end date will be January 15th, 2026. In 493, the end date will be October 15th, 2025. And in 495C, the end date will be October 15th, 2025.
I'll second it.
Motion by Randy, second by Pat.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye?
Randy, aye?
Jack, aye.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Randy, second by Kyla.
Kyla, aye.
Pat, aye.
Barbara, aye?